Good evening and welcome to the October 19th, 2022 School Board meeting. I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any changes to the agenda?
I have one suggestion, and that would be to move the comment section to either before or after old business, so we're able to get through our planned business first.
What comments?
The G,
Superintendent and school board?
yeah, the
All
whole
G.
comments section. Just to keep those together.
Just so we can get through our planned business?
Yep.
So I do think that we have the LMS principal here, who is here to speak on an issue that you're bringing up.
Right.
Related
In
to
that-
school board comment, and so my only hesitation is making her,
You mean superintendent comment?
Yeah,
or
I'm sorry. what did I-
Okay, so then maybe we just move the school board comments to that portion.
Tara, where are you moving it to, just so I,
I'm proposing that under G, school board, we move those comments to after we've gone through all of our planned agenda items,
so just before the manifest?
either before or after old business,
And the reasoning behind that?
so we can get through our planned business. Last meeting, we spent an hour and a half before we got to our planned business. And I think we need to get to our planned business first before other things.
Discussion, comments, seconds?
Second. Maybe we already started talking about it, but I'll second for conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, look, we can try it out and see how it goes.
Yeah.
yeah,
If we don't like it, we'll move it back.
exactly.
Sounds like a plan. Do I have to vote on this?
Well, there's a motion and a
There's a
second.
motion and a
Yes.
second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained.
School board comment.
500. We'll
before
go
business.
after manifest. That would be section 5. In Roman numerals.
Said before or after, so is it gonna be before
Or
the
the
old
manif-
business or after? Sorry, it's like either one.
So it's after old business, before the manifest, is that
Okay,
what we decided?
after,
Yeah.
so it'll be
After.
So
business.
it'll be the new 6.
Okay.
Summary of non-public actions from October 5th, 2022. Ms. Ames made a motion to approve the non-public meetings of September 21st, 2022. Mrs. Harrison seconded. The motion carried 4-1-0 with Mr. Cutter opposing. Now we're presentations. Mr. Hess, the
Hello.
principal of Campbell High School.
Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here tonight.
Despite how your voice sounds, yeah.
Feel great. Having this be my first board report, I'm just going to kind of wing it. I do have some staff and a student here today to talk about some cool stuff that we got going on this week as well. But if you read my report, which I'm sure you all did, I think I really want to make those recognitions public. So I want to start off by recognizing student council and the advisor, Mr. McDonough. The amount of work that those kids put in for starting our school year, the freshman orientation day, planning out and helping with open house, and then our whole homecoming festivities and everything. It's really tremendous. And, there's 30-some kids plus, probably 10 to 15 more volunteers. And it's just a really nice thing that, 10% of our population is fully vested in planning our biggest events as we start the school year. And then on top of that, I'm sure I don't have to tell you how dedicated Mr. McDonough is to Campbell High School. So just really fantastic to start the school year off with them. And then just the faculty in general. It's not easy being a new principal coming into a new building, and they have made the transition very easy for me. Maybe a little too easy, I'm not sure. But we have a very hardworking, dedicated staff. I'll talk a little bit about our PD day that we had last week. But I just want to make sure that I recognize the Campbell High School staff as well. And then specifically, I want to talk about my administrative team and my admin assistants in the front office. Spending the summer with Mike Perez, Val Nelson, Josh Knight, and then Karen Sansom and Amanda Sosi in the front office. It really just kind of gave me the lay of the land from July 1st through now, and that has helped so that we could hit the ground running once school started on August 29th. There was no kind of lag period. So just recognizing all those people to really help make me feel comfortable as a new building principal and to make sure that we could get right down to work with some of the stuff that we wanted to do once school started. So I just wanted to start off by recognizing all those folks. One of the big things that we're going to be working on this year, and I mentioned it in the curriculum portion of the report, there's been a lot of talk about, what's the best way to approach instruction in the classroom? Is it lecture? Is it project-based learning? And that sort of thing. And I've really tried to take the focus this year with the idea of student engagement in student-centered classrooms. I think that anytime you can get a student more engaged in the material, I don't think kids would complain about that. I definitely don't think that teachers would complain about that either. So if you could add that student engagement, give students a little bit more voice and choice in how they learn or what they learn, and then you give a real world application, and I think that that's going to go a long way. And so we spent our PD day talking about the fantastic work that already happens around that. At Campbell High School, we had each department share out where they find successes and struggles when it comes to that. And then we talked as a whole school about different tools, little tweaks you can make into your classroom to really change kind of how you approach it. I think that oftentimes we can jump to, 10 years ago, project-based learning came back full force. And I think that there's a ton of great things about project-based learning. But I also think that you don't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater, and we can add little components throughout all of our classes and really give students and teachers opportunities to experience learning in a different way. And I'm excited to do that work at Campbell High School because we have amazing people in departments that are already jumping headfirst into it, and we have some teachers that are dipping their toes with it. So to be able just to focus on this instead of coming in and saying, I'm going to change the entire system, I didn't think that was wise at all. And I don't think that that would benefit our kids or our staff. So we spent a full day working on that as a curriculum piece, and that's going to be our steady continuum throughout the school year. We'll spend some time during faculty meetings having staff members share out what they're doing in their classroom that's different, that's working. I've had some great conversations with, talking about recognition, Shannon Zepan jumping in full force with her health class and really trying to redesign how kids learn and what that looks like. And it's tough, and kids haven't learned this way before. And she's, frustrated, but in a positive way because, it forces kids to learn a little bit more on their own, and she gets to kind of guide in different ways. So we've got people that are ready and excited. We got some people that are nervous but excited. And I think that it's going to be a great year for our staff to learn from each other and work collaboratively to kind of see where things are working and where they could be struggling. So pretty excited about that. We got some big events coming up. We got Red Ribbon Week next week. I put that on the calendar. We've got parent-teacher conferences coming up.
What is Red Ribbon Week?
Red Ribbon Week, it's the focus on our SAD group. So, the anti-alcohol, anti-drug, good positive choices type thing. So they're putting together some activities for that next week. We're also going to be doing a toiletry drive for our alum in the military. We're going to send some packages out to them and do some collections of that next week. Parent-teacher conferences are coming up on the 7th and 8th of November, so we're going to send some information out so parents can sign up to come in and meet with teachers. And then the big district musical Wizard of Oz, that first weekend in December with, 100 kids, give or take, district-wide, and just great collaboration across the district, I think, is fantastic to see as I came into the district. So, that's kind of what's going on at the high school. It's been, 8 weeks. The quarter ends in 2 weeks, which is pretty crazy to think about, but we've really kind of hit the ground running full force with the 22-23 school year. So budget season's been fun. Really enjoying that and helping build a budget at the building. Been super collaborative.
Why did you go like this?
That's been really nice. No, we just gotta be positive about it. It's, hey, you don't get a group of people to come together better and work harder than we've been doing the last 6 weeks. So does it suck? Absolutely. Are we solving some pretty creative problems? You betcha. So it's nice to do that. So any questions for me before I turn it over to the more eloquently audible people?
Well stated. No, thank you very much. That was a great update.
So on Thursday, our English department's taking a group of kids to Salem, Mass. And they've done it in the past. And so we've got 2 of our teachers that are going to talk about it. We've got one of our student, Emma Burns, who has been in the past, that's going to discuss it as well. So. Oh, I didn't see you. I didn't see you. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yes. I read her emails. I just don't respond. So, I'm going to turn it over to them. I'll let them come up and talk. I'll stay here if you guys have any questions afterwards.
Thank you.
It took me
It looks like your staff can't stand you, Mr. Hess. They look.
trying again in 5 years, so I wish I had a map. It's annoying.
So we have Olivia Ash, Mrs. Gaspar, Emma Burns, and Mr. Keefe.
Yes. So, should I start?
Sure.
So, I guess I will. So hi everyone.
Hi.
So we started this trip, I think, the year before COVID. It's always like the divider, right? Pre-COVID, after COVID. And it was tremendously successful, and we had a beautiful day, and the kids loved it. So we received a lot of feedback when we came back. But what brought up the idea of going was, in each grade, I think for senior year, so we offer it to sophomores, juniors, and seniors. Sophomore year, when we cover Macbeth, we actually just started. I'm sure your kids have come home and just raved about Macbeth, I'm sure. So in between the years, it really started in the 15th century in England with this witch hunt, and about 500 it was like 700 to 1,000 people were killed and accused of witchcraft. 90% of them were women. And so when we cover Macbeth, we talk about that, and with the incorporation of the 3 witches, it's a perfect tie-in. And then junior year, American literature, they of course do the Salem witch trials, which makes Salem so appropriate. And they read the Crucible at the same time. And then I think it was honors senior English.
Yeah, honors senior English. We read some short stories that relate to that time period.
The Gothic, Gothic literature, short stories pertaining to Gothic elements and all of that stuff. It was like the perfect tie-in for almost all the students.
And it's so close. We're so lucky.
Exactly, we are,
Really are.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So, we talked about just going to the Witch Museum, and we did that, I think, last year. And we took a little tour of that main street in Salem. We drove by we actually were able to stop. The kids were able to get out the first year we went, where the tree is actually still there with the memorials of the women who were hung as a result of being accused of witchcraft. And so it's really interesting. And the students are able to tie in with what they're reading in the Crucible and all of the history behind that. They're able to it's like seeing it in real time, kind of. And then as we were there, we were desperately trying to find a bathroom for one of our students, and we looked up, and there's the House of the Seven Gables, and we're like, why didn't we do that? So we ended up adding that in this year. So it's going to be pretty tight. We leave tomorrow morning at 7:40-ish, and our tours are back to back, and I'm sure you can imagine what Salem looks like right now. Yeah, it looks amazing, but I guess everyone is there. So it's going to be a pretty tight day, but I think it's going to be a good one, and the students are looking forward to it. So
Good people watching.
oh my gosh, absolutely, I know. Yeah, that's one of the best. That's one of the highlights. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Not very Litchfield-like.
Yeah, I know.
We
Yeah.
also read the Scarlet Letter junior year,
yeah.
but it's just switched. I think we're moving it to senior year. Nathaniel Hawthorne had grandparents that were, one was a judge in the Salem witch trials, so he has that connection, and he certainly writes with that always writes with that puritanical sort of guilt, that's in the Scarlet Letter. And we also read a short story, I think that's now in the junior curriculum, by Nathaniel Hawthorne with Faith. What's the name of that one? I'm sorry, I'm forgetting it.
Oh my gosh, I'm such a sophomore
his-
curriculum girl.
Again, it's about a young man, young Goodman Brown, young Goodman Brown, I forgot it for a second. He goes out to the woods and, and all the very pious, outstanding members of the community are in there, like, converting with the devil and, signing his ledger and so forth. And so that has a lot to do with it as well. Just also, though, I think it's important too, the Salem witch trials is for students to sort of reflect upon, the idea of falsely accusing people and without a trial, without evidence, just accusing. And then if you think about it, we look at the way that the media is today. People are constantly being accused of everything before there's any evidence to really suggest that they did any wrong. And so I think that's an important lesson. We have a political landscape that's very divided in this country, and both sides accusing the other sides and pointing fingers. And so I think that idea that, like, wait a minute, by you saying someone did something, it doesn't make it true. And as Ms. Gaspar mentioned, Tituba and some of the women that were accused of witchcraft, they were dispossessed women, impoverished and so forth. So they were sort of vulnerable people in society that were accused of this. And so there's also an economic factor in there. So it's just, I think, an important lesson for students to be reminded of. So, yeah.
How many students are you taking with you?
We have 40 students.
That's a
Yeah.
good amount.
From sophomore,
Sophomore
junior,
to,
and senior?
I think a lot of the juniors, because they had already gone last year, I think it's that, what do we do? Do we go again and maybe forfeit something senior year or what, So, yeah, I think that was why a lot of the junior, we have good representation from each class, but.
Yep.
When does
So
the bus
we're
come
gonna
back?
alternate the
Sorry.
field trips, sorry.
No, that's right.
Oh, so we're gonna alternate the field trips because, so next year, we're not gonna go to Salem, we're gonna go to, the Emily Dickinson, Museum in Amherst, Mass. I had a student last spring that did an ELO, on Emily Dickinson, and it was amazing. And she actually, what came out of that ELO, not only did she did like lessons that I'm gonna use this year, I'm like, these are great lessons. She designed like units on Emily Dickinson. She also published a book of poetry, which is
I just bought it on
phenomenal.
Amazon.
It's
awesome.
This young
Yeah.
lady, I'm telling you, she's gonna be a famous poet someday. She's so good, and that came out of that ELO. I worked with her, and she really enjoyed writing, and she published this book, and I mean, it's amazing. So anyway, I think extending the classroom out into the real world is a really important aspect, and it really enriches student learning. And so this is an opportunity to do it, and we'll alternate. So next time we go to Salem in 2 years, we'll probably have a bunch of students again.
Yeah.
That's
Makes
fantastic. What a
it-
great idea.
That is
Yeah,
awesome.
it just kind of allows a little taste each year if they want to do that. And we try, we with inflation and everything, I tried to keep the cost on par with where it has been. I was able to do it. In fact, just on an aside, my poor daughter was tasked with baking 120 of those, the Pillsbury like Halloween cookies. I didn't want to, the restaurant we always go to wanted an additional $5 on top of the already increased prices. And I was like, I'm not charging these poor kids and parents another $5. So I'm like, we'll bake cookies, Emma. So it was a labor of love, but so.
And just to
We were able
say
to keep
too,
it, I
like,
think.
the whole English department's going, so all 4 of us. So, Mr. Hess has his hands full trying to recover for all of us. Tomorrow, there's only, all of us, there's only 4 of us, small school, but I will say Miss Gaspar is a rock star because she does these field trips from New York to, going to Boston, and they're so professional, they're so well planned out. and the kids love them so much. So
Thank
she
you.
really deserves all the credit.
No, I don't.
I'm just up here, but I
Yes, you
can't,
do.
No, thank you, no. I couldn't do it without my colleagues and the support of our admin and,
The fact you found plays that you were gonna see in New York and Boston, that just makes the price so much more attainable for so many
Hamilton's
more
coming to
families.
Boston too.
I know, I already have 90 seats reserved for Les Mis in Providence, Rhode Island on November 17th. Anyone can come.
Wow.
Yeah.
My kids didn't end up going because they thought it was in the afternoon. What time is the bus getting back?
5.
Oh,
okay.
for Salem?
Yeah.
I'm still on Les Mis, I'm sorry.
Sorry. No, that's fine. Oh, okay.
Oh, so yeah,
All
we're
right,
getting-
fine.
well,
They
and
were
it
just
may be-
concerned about missing their co-curricular, so that's
I
why.
wish,
Okay.
yeah, I wish I would have known that. I would have reached
Yeah,
out.
I don't know why they.
Well, I have a very excited sophomore who is very
I was
excited. to go.
disappointed they
I'm so
didn't
glad.
take advantage of it. But anyway.
Well, don't worry,
Okay.
we got
They'll
you.
have it when they're
We'll do
seniors. They'll
it
be fine.
again.
Try not to let her spend all of her money on crystals for me, okay?
You know what, I don't think we're gonna have time.
Oh, good.
Even better. Unless there is a gift shop at the, as you exit, the Witch Museum, right?
There's a
So
gift
they-
shop, she'll find it,
yeah.
don't worry.
Yeah, so,
She a budding apothecary.
Yes, she
yeah,
is.
exactly.
Don't worry, we're keeping a close eye on Grace. Don't worry.
Good,
But
perfect.
as we're doling out the thanks, I would also love to, of course, thank my colleagues, the students, they're amazing, and I know you guys still have to talk, but Mr. Hess as well, and everyone that has to deal with us being out of the building. I know that it's, especially now, we're so short substitutes, and there's all of these, moving pieces, and so it's just nice to know that we get the support that we can do these things when they pop up, so.
Not all learning happens at school.
That's right, yeah, it's true.
Talk about engaging students, connect them to the real world with these, experiences. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's what these two fabulous young ladies do.
All right, girls,
So
what
go
do you
ahead,
have to
sing our
say?
praise. Sing our praises, girls.
Okay. Well, they pretty much covered it all. But last year was first year I took a field trip since like COVID and everything. And my favorite part, we kind of went over it, was the people watching. It like interacting with all the people on the street. Like they were just in crazy costumes. Like I remember this one guy was on like stilts and he was taking pictures with everybody. That was my favorite part, going in, like, not shop, but we, like, went to, like, the vendors around the street, the museum. That was super cool to see, like, and, yeah, that was pretty much it, but I had a blast. I went with, like, a different group of people. Like, none of my friends really went, but, like, I went with different people, and it's fun to make that connection. Like, I made a few new friends at that time, so, yeah.
It's nice.
I had the same experience when I went. Like Liv said, I went, that was my first field trip since COVID. And also, it helped me really understand what was going on in the classroom. And it kind of clicked with me while I was there. I was like, this actually happened. Where in school, it's like all the stories you read are either like, let's just say Beowulf, which was
Let's not.
grand to read.
Sorry, Amy. Sorry, Amy.
Which like happened thousands and thousands of years ago, and it was, fantasy in a way. Where the Crucible, well, it was a play, and there were real names in there, and I saw like the tree where they were hung, and I was like, this is real, this is actually happened. Mm-hmm. And it's something that like kind of opened my eyes when I was looking around at, like when we were walking around with all the people dressed up, and I said to myself, look where we've like grown, or in all this, where we were turning and pointing at each other, saying, "Oh, she's a witch," or I was possessed by them, to like, wow, there's a person dressed as a witch. That's cool, and it gave me a sense of like Halloween and what it's like truly about, as well as it connected to school. So.
I love that.
Thanks, Emma.
Yours is much more meaningful than mine was. I can see people watching.
Do you want to add?
You had,
You all did fantastic.
thank you so much.
You did too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Even though you forgot me.
It's okay.
I did the face at home.
You got him good.
Yeah. I
But
did.
seriously though, I appreciate the fact that where we are located, we have this ability to access historical sites like this. And so for you guys to put a trip together that takes advantage of that and brings our students out into the real world. I think it's fantastic, so,
And I'll just
thank
end
you.
with this and then I'm gonna shut my mouth. Every single time we do one of these trips, and I'm sure you can agree, we realize just how amazing our students are. And I'm not just saying this. This is after every prom we have, after every trip we do, every event. We're so lucky, and it's a testament to the parents and just the community. So, we're blessed too. So it's nice. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a
Thank
good
you
night.
so much.
Have a great night.
Tomorrow.
Enjoy your trip.
Before we sit down, if I can say just real quick, so the PD that we recently had with Mr. Hess was awesome.
It was awesome.
Oh,
This
It was.
guy, this modest man with a hoarse voice, his PD was so engaging.
Yep.
And it left everyone feeling so good and so invested in the school.
Yeah.
Kudos to him. So he's not gonna say it because he's
And
modest.
I
unlike, you know,
agree, and we're not doing this just for like brownie points. I mean it.
Maybe a
It
little.
was
Mostly this is all a little.
yeah. I know. It was wonderful. So
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Good to hear.
I thought Noah was raising his hand saying, I'm here for the brownie points.
I know right? He is.
Just
yes.
kidding.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, we are on to community comments on agenda items.
First community comment. Is anyone
Yeah.
here from the community?
First community comments. Darlene, you're our community. No? Anybody? None. At this time, we thank everyone who provided blah, blah, blah. We have now ended the public comment, and the board will conduct their business within the view of the public. No further comments can be made by the public during the meeting until our second one, which is at 8 o'clock, I believe. Is it 8 o'clock? I haven't. Closed community comment. Correspondence, Mrs. Ames.
Okay, so I'm really trying to capture all of the correspondence, even including the board member correspondence, anything that we're all copied on. So if anyone sees anything or hears anything I'm missing, please let me know. 10-5 was an email from Doug Totten, our business administrator, sharing documents for questions about an independent audit or report. On 10-5, Liz McDonald, our chair, sent an email thanking board members for a productive meeting. On October 7th, Elizabeth McDonald sent a meeting inquiring about meeting with taxpayers from the Stage Crossing development. There were replies from Andrew Cutter, Tina Harrison, Tara Hirschberger, and Elizabeth McDonald. I believe there were follow-ups that set this for October 24th at
Correct.
7 o'clock p.m.
Yes. I'm just gonna double check and see if anything's changed.
October 7th, 2022, again, an email from Doug Totten, our business administrator, discussing the manifest procedures after his conversation with Ann. October 7th, correspondence from Melissa Reiki, a community member, following up regarding the use of 2024 fundraising money for the Salem field trip. On October 9th, Ms. Gaspar responded and copied the whole board on it, saying that she would look into it as well. October 11th, Lauren Crowley sent an email regarding the wellness committee meeting. And there was then, a couple hours later, another email from Lauren Crowley canceling the wellness committee meeting due to unforeseen circumstances. October 11th, an email from Andrew Cutter requesting updated solar project costs, and there was a reply that they would be putting those together from Dr. Jetty. October 11th, an email from Elizabeth McDonald regarding a press release regarding residency that was to be posted. October 12th, 2022, there was an email from Stephen Weber, the Board of Selectmen Chair. Under that string, there were replies from Rich LaSalle, Robert Leary, Michelle Flynn, Steve Perry, and Liz McDonald. All of these were regarding setting a date for a deliberative session, and it was ended that it would be discussed at our meeting tonight. October 14th, an email from Michelle Flynn circulating the draft agenda. October 14th, an email from Melissa Reiki, a community member, expressing disappointment with the lack of response to her prior email, and she received a reply from Dr. Jetty on October 17th. October 17th, Heidi Ames and Liz McDonald sent an email to the board soliciting ideas for ways to shorten school board meetings. October 17th, Andrew Cutter sent an email requesting invoices for Dalton mowing. October 17th, we received an email from Miss Patton at GMS inviting us to attend the Scarecrow Jamboree. October 17th, there was an email from Doug Totten, Business Administrator, regarding the DOE 25 and the MS 25, and then a reply from Dr. Jetty thanking Doug for his hard work. October 18th, there was an email from Patrick Keefe, the LEA President, which is the LEA response to the budgetary deficit, and the summary of it is that it's expressing disappointment and concern. October 19th, there was an email from Doug Totten with a working spreadsheet of the Dalton expenses that related to the prior request. And I think I'm caught up.
I think you did a great job.
Okay.
I sent too many emails.
No, you didn't. Michelle, I'll get you this list.
Correspondence comments, superintendent comments.
So I wanted to follow up on the Washington DC trip situation, right? So parents have been emailing, as the board I'm sure is aware, there have been at least 3 parents who have inquired about the Washington DC money from the shutdown time, right? So I'm going back to April of 2020.
It's current juniors.
And these are current juniors. These are members of the class of 2024. So I want to just sort of walk everybody through this, and Jen is here to make sure that I've got my facts straight on this also, so that everybody knows exactly what happened and where the money is at this point in time.
The difference between the deposit money and the fundraiser money.
Correct.
That's okay.
So in the fall of 2019, everything was normal. We were having a normal school year, and the middle school was planning for the traditional trip to DC as they had done for numerous years. So 2 things happened. There was a deposit that was collected from parents, and the deposit was basically, there was an initial $100 deposit, and then there was a request for a second $100 deposit, okay? Of that money, the parents, it sort of ranged. I mean, not everybody made the second deposit. Some people made the first deposit of $800. They just paid for the trip outright and said, here it is, right? So there was a variety of money that was collected, all depending on individual circumstances. From that, we paid Capital Tours, which is the company that we had contracted with for many, many years. We paid them the deposit that they required of $125 per student. And there were 112 students that we paid that deposit, which amounted to $14,000. So Principal Lecklider at the time collected that money in from parents, wrote the check to Capital Tours for that deposit, but kept the rest of the deposit money in the student activity account, right? So he was only gonna send it to Capital Tours as the billing became available, if that makes sense. So the next thing that happens is students are engaged in fundraising, and they have several opportunities that are kind of set up by the school that allow them to earn money. Looking at the spreadsheet, it seems as if there was a cookie sale of some sort, cookie dough probably. There were subs that were sold. I think that's tied to Super Bowl, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And there was a donut sale. I think that was the big trip down to Krispy Kreme's in Connecticut at 2 in the morning, bringing fresh Krispy Kremes back to Litchfield. And so those 3 fundraisers occurred. And in looking at it, students had a variety of participation in those fundraisers. Remember, that's optional. That's just something available for them to raise the funds. So we had several students who didn't raise anything. They just didn't participate in the fundraising choices. And there's one student who earned almost $400 when you add it all up. So again, that money was collected in and kept at the school to be sent later as it was needed. Okay, so we now fast forward to March, and March 13th, if you remember, we have the hard shutdown. And right about that time, it becomes pretty clear we're not going to Washington, D.C. the next month. And so Tom is trying to figure out what to do about this. So he contacts the company, and they say, well, the 125 is a non-refundable deposit, so you can't get that back. So the $14,000 that has been sent down there is non-refundable. And as they explained, they had already prepaid vendors. I mean, there's a hotel reservation. There are other commitments that they've made with the vendors who are providing services down in DC. Tom and I talk about it, and we say, okay, it says it's non-refundable deposit, it doesn't say for when we're traveling. So call back and ask the question of, you hold that funds, you hold that non-refundable deposit until April of 21, when we go to DC again, when everything's back to normal. And at that point in time, we'll collect the money from parents again, and that money won't have to go to Capital Tours, because you already have your money. That money can then follow the kids so that the fundraising money follows the class of 2024. That was the plan that we had at that point in time, okay? Also, we refunded every parent their money. So if they had done a $100 deposit, a $200 deposit, an $800 deposit, all that money, parent personal money, got refunded and paid back. The only thing that was left up in the air was the $14,000, which, by the way, when you add up the total amount that was fundraised by the class of 2024, it was $13,744.50. So almost the $14,000 can be captured by the fundraising, okay?
Okay, so even though we didn't get the refund on the deposit, we did pay that, we were able to pay that back.
We paid
out
the
of
parents
those
back with the fundraising
funds.
money,
Got it, okay.
right? But,
Yep.
and we were counting to use that the next
Yep.
year. Fast forward, April of 21, we're not going to DC again. Vaccines haven't caught up to where, we were in session, but vaccines haven't caught up, travel is not really a thing.
We still had remote kids at that point.
We did, and so we basically decide not to do it, and we make the request to Capital Tours to forward it again to 2022. And they reluctantly agree to do it, because we've been good business partners of theirs for a time period, okay? So then, next year comes around, and now we get into sort of a back and forth with them over, they're saying that we can't use the full 14,000, they'll only allow us to use a portion of it, so there was a lot of back and forth on it, and we ultimately decide not to go to DC. We had, there was some parent concerns still in 2022 about traveling to Washington, and so Principal Grantham ended up doing the variety of trips last year in lieu of DC, okay? I have talked with the owner of the company, Jeff Zanakis, and he has said, listen, there's no more money. That money is gone. That was, first of all, a non-refundable deposit. Litchfield's the only school that we had agreed to push it forward. We pushed it once, we pushed it twice, we're not pushing it any further. It's done. He said, we lost a significant amount of money, and anybody in the travel industry lost a significant amount of money. He said some of the vendors that we paid that forward to have gone out of business, and we can't recoup those funds. So your money that was collected and sent down there has disappeared with a company that closed up during the pandemic. That's what happened during the pandemic. So what we're faced with right now is that the class of 2024, Tom sent an email out explaining, hey, that money will follow up, so that everybody knew where it was. But that money has
Not come back.
not come back, and is not coming back, and is not available to us at this point in time. In talking with Jeff, he said it's unfortunate that nobody took out the travel insurance, because there was a travel insurance available at $37, which was trip cancellation, and it would have refunded 75% of the $125 for any family who would pick that up. But in searching his records, he doesn't find that anybody did that, and I can't tell whether that was even offered, because I don't have all the communication, so I really can't say, yes, everybody got a form saying, if you want to purchase travel insurance, here's how to do it. I'm not sure. But he said, there were some schools who in 2020 had said, you're going to buy the trip and you're going to buy the insurance. We're just going to tack that on, like that's a part of it. Because then if a kid gets in trouble and gets suspended and can't go on the trip, the travel insurance will reimburse it and the school's not caught. So they didn't make that a parent choice thing. They just said, for $37, we're going to add that in for everybody. And he said all those people got their money back, or 75% of the money back. But not, apparently not Litchfield from what we can find. So I think what's a couple of key things here is that I think we have to understand that family direct investment was returned. Student effort, fundraising, is the thing that is stuck. For some kids, it's nothing because they literally raise nothing. For some kids, they raise a more substantial amount, and they were hoping to have that. Although our stance all along had been that it was class of 24 money, and that it would be something that the class would be able to use. But that's the situation that we're currently in relative to DC. And I know this is upsetting the parents. I know that this isn't the way we envisioned it going. I think the other piece is that I kind of jumped in with 2 feet on it because it was initially Tom and Bill talking about what was going to happen. We now have Jen and Jake who have inherited this situation, if you would. And when things escalated initially last fall, it was Corey, as the business administrator, who was the one talking with Jeff. And I was kept informed, so I knew the nuts and bolts of it, but it was really something that people who are no longer here were having conversations about and trying to figure out. So I want to be, number one, transparent with the board about where it is. 2, there is a spreadsheet that shows exactly what each kiddo raised. We have all the information, but we don't have the money. And the reason is that it was a non-refundable deposit that at this point in time is not available to us. And I don't know that we even need to respond to all this tonight because it's a lot. I want to be clear with the board about where we are. I want us to think our way through what is the best avenue and the best response for this, and see if people have ideas of something I could pursue further. But I'm kind of I'm at the end of what I can do at this point, other than explain it.
In my view, it is what it is, right? It's a tough situation to be in. We're all part of what happened over the past couple of years, the last 2.5 years, right? And yeah, I understand that there's increased costs and costs that this company that we've contracted with to outlay as well. I appreciate that. I think my core issue with this is there seemingly has been no communication on the lack of refund or lack of what we're gonna do with this, with the money to any of the parents, right? And I think if we're just open and honest and explain the situation, we might be in a different position today. That's my read on it.
Well, that's the point of tonight, to,
Sounds like it's been a
number
confusing
one,
situation to try to get to the
But
bottom
it sounds like
of.
we also knew this in April, right? We knew we weren't getting any money back, we
Nope.
had in April.
we didn't know that. It really was the conversation I had this week to say, because I thought the money was still somewhere. I thought it was something that we were going to be able to tap into. So we did not know that until now. This is relatively new information.
Once we canceled in April, again for the 3rd time, we weren't made aware that we weren't getting all that money back?
Correct. There was we never canceled it because we never booked it. So that's the other piece, is that last fall, when we had the initial request, and then we got into this back and forth about using all, because here's the problem. The class of 2024 is the last triple-digit class, 112 kids. We now have classes of 90. And so that's where we got into a disagreement about how much money there was and how we were going to use it. And ultimately decided not to go. So we never booked anything to cancel. And I think the assumption that was made by a bunch of people was, well, the money will just still be there. They still have it.
And they just
Right.
told you last week they're done pushing it forward.
They have.
That's what-
They told me that yesterday. So this is hot off the press information. This is not something we've been sitting on. And honestly, I jumped into it because the only person who was here in 2020 and had the story sort of somewhere in my head, it was me. It wasn't Jake, it wasn't Jen, it wasn't Doug, it was me at this point. So I'm like, let me see what I can do to figure out how we got to where we are. And that's the story. Jen, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, but
The back and forth last year, we had the contract to go on the trip, because as we presented to the board last year, we had the intent of going. In November, we talked about it, we booked the deposits, we had all the intent of going, but when the vaccine requirements became necessary in DC, and we had a 50-50, people that were concerned about going because of COVID, and people that weren't concerned about going because of COVID, but were concerned about vaccine requirements,
So we decided, in order to make it an accessible trip for all, that we would not sign any contract last year, in addition to the back and forth that I had with the company, because I received the information from the spreadsheet to say there was this $14,000 that we were looking to reclaim, and in conversations with Mike, had that information, and then my back and forth with this company was, you're gonna get about $9,000 back, which would not have covered the difference for the class of 2024. And I turned it over to Mike and Corey to fight that battle, because they were kind of giving a hard time about what was coming back.
And Jen, thank you for I forgot about the vaccine component.
Yeah.
You have to, all of this is so important to put yourself back at that point in time. So last fall,
January.
DC was requiring vaccinated students, and we knew we had families who were just saying, we don't believe in the vaccine, which again, as a school district, we're okay with that, but that also excludes you from the trip. So that was a real
The good business would have
sticking
said, if
point.
you don't go this year, you're not getting your money back, and it sounds like they didn't say that.
It
They've
wasn't,
also carried it over, a non-refundable deposit for
2
3
years,
years,
yeah.
which seems
The other
generous.
caveat to that, and I know that, Mike alluded to it, was that the gentleman's agreement between Tom and the owner of the company, the owner unfortunately passed away.
Oh
in
my
the
goodness.
interim.
yeah.
So the gentleman's
my
agreement was
goodness.
between Tom, who no longer works here, and the owner of the company, who sadly, passed away last fall, I believe it was. So it was trying to catch up with their company and us, of people that didn't really know what the conversation was.
Should have
So,
been in
so just if I
writing.
may, the president I spoke to, Jeff, so his co-owner did pass last fall, and he said, I'm looking at one sentence typed in, carry over, deposit to 21. He said, that's what's typed in here. He says, I have no knowledge of this whole thing, but I can see Ron typed this in. And so I'm gonna honor that by carrying it over to 21. Then I honored it again to 22. I can't,
Yeah, financially, they can't do it again.
so I forgot about, that's another piece of the agreement was between Tom and Ron, who's no longer with us, so it's not good.
And it wasn't that we weren't intending to go all the way, it was we were trying to get them to give us the full 14,000 to go before we signed anything. And then when all of the vaccine requirements became a thing and the parents were pulling out of the trip in and of itself, it became not a class trip any longer, which is why we hadn't signed anything, we hadn't booked anything officially with them. And when they sent us the final contract, we said, no, we're not going.
Sorry.
Well, I
That's
think
a
it was the
lot.
right decision to give the families back their monies, but I do feel horrible for the people who took the effort and did the fundraising. I know how much time and money that can be. If there's another way that we can somehow, not
So I had
reverse
a-
necessarily,
I had
but
a thought on
in
that.
future fundraising, somehow give them added value or something.
So we know this is obviously a bad year to try to find $14,000 to be able
lost
to give to these students, but my thought was, is there an option to budget 14,000 for 2024? So we plan for it, we're in the middle of budget season right now. We plan to add in $14,000 for the class of 2024 to be used for their senior activities. And for these students, we have the spreadsheet, we know who gets what. And then that way, I mean, we're paying for it and we're asking the taxpayers to pay for it, but I think it's a fair thing to do for these kids. It's not their fault that it was a non-refundable deposit, and they spent a lot of time. And so this way, it could be in there, it can go through budget committee, it can be vetted and discussed, but it's a known number, we're planning for it, we're budgeting for it, and then they have prom, I know they do senior week, a cruise. There's gotta be something that's gonna add up to the cost that these kids could use.
I mean, we can try, budget committee may pull it out as a separate
I
warrant.
really like the idea.
You know what, because
I'd be in support of that too.
it's,
I think it's the right thing to do.
So
It is
we
the
would
right-
need to
COVID.
use it towards like a school-sponsored event, like even if somebody said they fundraised $300 and they only needed $200 towards a school-sponsored event,
we couldn't give back the $100, cause.
Yeah, I don't
So
think
I
we
just wanna
give
get that
cash
out
to
there too,
anyone.
because.
No, I
It
agree.
goes towards,
But
Yeah.
they
Like
have,
the
they must have
prom.
to pay some dues, they must
yeah.
have to
Oh, yeah.
pay something for a cruise.
What about the parking dues?
yes.
Yeah,
Love the idea.
Yeah.
A lot of time just went into developing an almost perfectly funded high school budget.
I'm sorry.
I know it's only $14,000, but myself, the CFs, I mean, we've spent countless hours trying to come in with a budget as close to level funded as possible. And so I know, hey, I get it. But please understand also the work that has gone in from the high school administrative team and the CFs and all the teachers to try to put a budget that was fair within I would have been up 70% if I could have, but I didn't.
Can we put it in under the district budget? So it's not, because again, it's a different,
So.
Or we could recommend it be
I'm
a
just saying
warrant.
not to ruin Campbell's level funded, work hard on your budget. Okay,
But before, so I love the idea too, because that was actually one of the things I thought in my head. And then it would be up to the community to decide if that's something that they wanted to do to help this class out, right?
It's another COVID, just, ugh.
The,
Ends.
the one thing
Thanksgiving.
I would suggest is that we wait until you get your budget presentation and put that in your back pocket.
Yep.
Yeah.
We are struggling right now in getting the budget to be where I would like to see it, where Doug would like to see it, where the administrative team would like to see it. We are really struggling. And so, we've been working hard at it. We've got a ton more to do. You're gonna see it in another week. But right now,
and I don't
And I
want
agree
to
with you.
impugn the work that all of the
Right.
folks have done with budgeting. And so to me, this would be a conversation of, you guys continue the good work of getting the budgets where you need them to go. This would be a separate conversation and carved out separately as part of the budget committee conversation, as part of the presentation to us somehow.
But it-
And I don't know how to do it, but
We could, correct me if I'm wrong, Doug, but I think we could add it to the student activity fund or account, right? I mean, that's where the money would reside, and then it would be used
Well,
for.
you-
We'd have to make a transfer to it, so we would
Okay.
Yeah.
put it in some budget, whether it's district or whatnot, and
Yeah.
then we would make a transfer from that budget line
Into
to
the
the student
student.
activity account.
Okay.
Can I just go back a second? Can you explain what a CF is? Is that a curriculum facilitator?
Sorry, department.
No, people don't know. I guessed. I was right.
so
But,
let's
you know,
not maybe make a decision tonight.
It's something to
I
mull
know it's a
over.
lot of money, but like, we have sports games, we have performances coming up. Why don't we just start putting a bucket out there? I mean, no, I'm serious, like, you probably would get some donations.
Yeah.
It would help.
I want to see us try to make the class of
It right.
2024 as whole as we possibly can, considering the efforts that maybe not all, but a lot of students put into fundraising, and we're back to somewhat normal. I think we have the ability to plan for it if we do it in next year's budget rather than trying to scramble with the 2023 budget. Thankfully, we have your juniors, we have a senior year, so I just would say, let's think about it, but I think it could be an option, yeah.
Excellent.
So if we pin that thought, a motion on the second budget presentation, when you've seen the overall where
Yeah.
we've landed, that would be, very appropriate. And I think by then we'll say it goes there. I agree with
Yeah.
Jake, it shouldn't
Yeah.
be in the high school budget.
No, I don't think so
You
either.
put it somewhere else that we can keep track of it, going forward.
Yeah.
It could be in the curriculum budget if we have placed as a placeholder, it's gonna be for class trips.
Yeah.
We increase some line there and we just know, right? So there are a variety of ways to
Then
get it
Andrew,
in
is
something
that-
simple.
Would that then be part of the following year default budget
If it's
No.
in the operating budget,
in the operate? Cause I'm just
Would be
thinking
part of
maybe
the
it's a
following year.
warrant that is separate, because that's a one-time thing. I mean, I think there's a compelling story to tell to the community about that.
I think it would not, because it would be a one-time thing, so it wouldn't be in the subsequent year's budget.
Yeah.
not in the operating budget, but in the default budget, because it carries over from the year before.
except
unless
you
it's a
ex-
one-time.
You exclude one-time expenditures.
Right.
Is that how the words are written?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And what is 14,000 of a however many $1 million budget? I mean, it's a
Yeah.
pretty minor
Yep.
amount for a
But
if it ended up in there as part of the
Budget committee's
default
looking at
budget.
everything. I mean,
No, I know.
$14,000.
I agree, and I hope that I know they will. They'll watch this discussion, so
Yeah.
they have the background on it. It can see where we're coming from in terms of wanting to help the class of 2024. I won't say fix it, but hopefully try to see if we can find a way to.
And it wasn't deliberate, it was another COVID just.
Casualty.
Yeah.
The student activity account, Doug, where is that kept track of? Because I don't see that in any of our reports.
Yeah, so that's the responsibility of each school. So what we've done though is they were using a different software product, and we're working on migrating them over to eFinance, and by we, it's a lot of Ann doing that work. Ann is doing a lot of that work, as well as some of the people from each of the buildings as well. So that's been a lot of work over the last month or two. So our goal in doing that is so we can run everything through eFinance. And even though student activity funds are a school-based account, this would allow us to help out more, as well as just making sure at the end of each year that.
So will I
that
see
goes.
a line item in each school for student activity accounts when we run the budget reports, or how will that work?
So we haven't seen the final product as far as how it's gonna integrate into eFinance at this point. So we haven't seen a
Stay
report
tuned.
yet.
Okay.
But there are so it's three other separate accounts that we're not seeing already.
Yep, but that money though is only used from each of those grade levels. So there's, and sporting events and,
So there's almost
12.
12 different
Tara,
there is a lot of
You
different.
have three accounts, one for each school.
per school.
Yeah.
Within those, at the high school, there's
Fit
probably
grades.
50 accounts.
Yep.
Classes
Okay, got
and
it.
the
Clubs.
play and the
Clubs
clubs and
and-
all of that.
okay,
So then you have all
yeah.
those sub-accounts within.
Sure.
And then it's probably not as complicated as GMS, but
Yeah.
that's.
GMS has
structure.
very few accounts. They have their grade level accounts and not a lot after that. LMS
Okay.
is in the middle, but
Yeah.
the high school has a lot of accounts.
Peter, why don't you follow up with Doug after, because you know the whole e-finance.
Yeah.
That would be-
No, look, I was just
Yeah.
curious, because that's something that, we're talking about yet another account, and we don't see any of that, so.
I think they're all funded differently too.
It's all through students.
It's not funded through taxpayers' money.
Understood,
Yeah.
yeah, understood.
Yeah.
Like parking, I think, is part of the student activity funds at the high school. I like to donate to a lot. Deliberative session dates,
Well,
Dr.
just
Jettie.
before I leave that, so advice from the board on how to communicate this? Because
I think we need to,
So just so everybody's
Yeah.
clear, all the parents who reached out, Ms. Reiki, Mr. Keating,
Mr. Dodge.
I didn't know, I didn't actually, but he has reached out in the past, but I didn't
past.
reply. I
Shannon's
said,
texting me right now.
I'm going to be, I'm gonna be discussing this at the board meeting, so come or watch. And so now the explanation has been given, so the question would be, what else do you think should happen?
I think there needs to be a written communication about it that is sent out to the class of 2024, because there are people that, as
Haven't
much
been
as we
paying
want them
attention.
to watch our meetings, may not be watching our meeting and may not know this is being discussed. And so I think, putting a communication together for those parents so they can understand
Yep.
where it went, what's the problem, and, have them get in touch if they have ideas for a solution as well.
Well, so that was my other thing, was solicit other ideas, because somebody out there watching might say, I've got an idea, this we're not even thinking of.
Absolutely.
So I'll solicit that. I won't get that out today or tomorrow, or obviously today, how's that? I won't get it out tomorrow, maybe Friday. If not, I'll have it out by Monday.
Okay.
Thank you. So deliberative session, so let me switch over to that. We have a handout that we want to share with the board, so I'll pass these around.
Is this the same one that we're seeing here or a different one?
It's,
Bye.
This one's not posted.
Okay.
You have a question?
I just wanna make sure you're all set with me.
thank you, Jim.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Jen.
it.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So, after the series of emails back and forth about deliberative dates, we wanted to map this out. And I said to Michelle, just do a map of when this has happened. And so let me explain the color coding. Basically, the school is in green, the town is in red, And the 3 that are in yellow are the 3 times in the last 20 years that we've had a joint meeting, or last 18 years that we've had a joint meeting. So, in fact, the last 2 years when we've had a joint meeting with the town, that's relatively new. The last time it had happened prior to that was in 2012. The other thing is that you can see, for the most part, the school has gone the second Saturday.
Okay.
Historically, that has been our date. And when Michelle reached out to our legal representatives and said, you know, do you have a preference on either the first Saturday or the second Saturday? They said they were already booked on the first Saturday, so they said, we'd like to go with the second if you can. And if you look at it, we have done both. Sometimes we've done the first, sometimes we've done the second, but more often we have done the second over that time period. So our recommendation to the board is that we set deliberative for Saturday, February 11th. It's right there at the very bottom in recommendation at 10 a.m. in the high school gym. And that legal will be here to help represent.
Sure.
Is there a reason we're not doing it in the auditorium?
I guess I would leave that up to the board. What,
The acoustics, I don't know, I thought the acoustics were bad there. Was that, there's so many meetings in my head.
In the gym, yeah, I
In the
thought so
gym, I
too.
thought the
I think
acoustics
the
were.
auditorium is far better.
Yeah.
I think the challenge has historically been LCTV, but I think
Right.
that's also been resolved.
LCTV actually purchased equipment to make it work in the gym during the pandemic, so they may have a preference, but they seem to make it work either place. We moved it to the gym as part of the pandemic, mainly because there's just more air volume in the gym.
Right.
But if the board preference is the auditorium, we can do that. Recognizing that we're limited on seats in there, and reminding the board that in order to use the presentation screens, we have the board sitting, like we did on the meeting a couple weeks ago. So the board is sitting in the orchestra pit, facing the audience, and it did create, because the budget committee, there's a whole dynamic there, because you can't all be in that area, so we just have to think our way
Wasn't there a
through it.
time when they were on stage and they were parallel, kind of like a V, and then the screen was in the middle?
There was a time when we were projecting on the back wall of the auditorium and nobody in the audience could read it, because it's not a screen, it's a back wall. So
we had a
the
screen.
screen is at the front, and I think what we did is we shifted to, it was like the board chair and the budget committee chair on the stage. So there was a very small group on kind of the edges of it, but the screen is huge and in the middle.
I'm fine with whatever you and LCTV decide.
Yeah.
I don't really feel
Agreed.
like,
But you
What's the town
prefer the
doing?
auditorium.
What's the town doing?
We don't know yet.
Okay.
They've talked about not being on the same day as the schools, is my understanding from the emails, unless I'm misinterpreting. I
There
wasn't-
was
They
disagreement. There was some that wanted it to be
Some
the
that
same
didn't.
day and some that didn't.
Yeah. I think putting my taxpayer hat on, a resident hat, I think there's a lot of value to having it on the same day. I think if it's on the 11th, it does leave us with a bit of risk, right? In the event that there is a snowstorm or something material, when are you gonna be able to reschedule that? Right?
We have to do it within 72
Right,
hours.
there's a very tight window to be able to do that.
Well,
But that's the
what-
same as on the 4th, too. That's
But you have a
still the same
carryover
window.
of the 11th.
No, you have to reschedule it within 72 hours.
Really?
And the solution to it is you post a snow date. You just
Yeah.
say, if we don't have it on the 11th, it is Tuesday night at
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. So you just post that right from the beginning.
Okay.
And then there's no question about when it ends up being.
So legal can't be there for the first,
The 4th.
Correct.
the fourth. They
first-
can only be there, and we historically have them there, correct?
We,
Need
That's
them there.
important.
Them there.
Okay.
Then I think that's our answer,
But
right?
that's, I mean,
You're
I
not
don't
gonna
know
be
that
able to
there's
be
much
there,
more
so-
conversation than that, but
Gonna be away, okay.
So if the town decides to also go on February 11th, which is their decision, the town went second last year, so will the town go first this year?
if we
Yes.
did a joint on the 11th?
Yes.
If
The
it's
town
joint,
went second last year because we conceded to let them go second.
but the town went second last year.
They couldn't be there in the morning, so,
They wanted to go in the afternoon?
yeah.
so
So it would have been our turn to go first.
Have we already booked legal for 10 a.m. though?
Well, 2 years ago, hang on, look at the sheet. 2 years ago, the town went at 10 and the school went at 1. Last year, the school went at 10, the town went at 1. So I think technically,
Yeah, but they didn't, we gave them the option because at first they had said they wanted to go first, and then they said, oh, we can't.
I think that should be resolved before we lock it
Yeah.
in. Right? Is the town gonna do it on the 11th? If so,
They
let's
seem
figure out who's
split.
gonna go first.
They
Yeah.
seem split on the email.
so.
That's up to the town, though.
Right.
For our purposes and for us, I mean, it seems like the 11th is the date, and
If legal can't make it on the 4th, right, then the 11th is fine. I think it's just working out the time.
Yeah.
All right,
And
so,
what time can legal make it on the 11th?
We'll have to double check that,
Yeah.
To double check it.
and then we'll communicate with the town and see what they wanna do. I think there's,
so I need to respond to the select board.
And the moderator,
Yeah.
right?
And Mr. Perry, correct. So we wanna stick with the 11th. It doesn't matter what time, or it does matter.
well,
Anybody?
we've asked legal for 10.
Okay.
So we'll have to double check to see, if they can come in the afternoon. Remember, they're covering school
Every
meetings
deliberative
and,
Yeah, right.
and
Yeah.
towns, they represent
Same thing.
towns too,
Yeah.
so they're all over the
Okay.
place, but, so Liz, you're gonna do the communication.
Correct.
Perfect.
All right.
That is my job.
We will,
Follow up to be
would you
done.
mind copying
Yes.
Michelle and me, just so that we're in
Yes.
the loop on it? Thank you. All right, so that's deliberative session. The last thing is I provided a link for you for, Bill Preble's contract, so, we had to wait until the Title IV grants came in, and we had our allocations, and so then based on that, we asked Bill to put together a contract, utilizing those funds. So that's grant money that we are, it's all funded by grant
This
money.
is 100% grant money.
Yep, and yes. And they're eager to get started, so if we get this approved
Do it.
and signed, we're gonna be starting pretty soon, so.
Is this grant money already on hand?
It's in grant management. So, on hand means you have the money allocated in grant management system from the state, and then when we incur the expense, we bill it back to that, and the check usually comes within a couple weeks. So they don't front load you the money, you have to submit the receipts for it.
My only concern with this contract is that, is the 6692 enough for elementary school, GMS? You know, it does look like they will be doing the data collection for all 3 schools. But the workshop, I mean, the middle school and the high school are heavy loaded with the workshops. I just want to make sure that we're paying enough attention to the elementary school as well.
Is there potential opportunity, maybe, because this is all in this year, is there a potential opportunity next year to apply for an additional grant for elementary if needed?
I'm looking at Bill's email, because I sent a separate question saying, can you detail exactly what would be given to the elementary school?
Oh, okay.
And his response is, and it's actually less expensive because he's planning for it, I mean, first of all, you're talking elementary kids, so it's gonna be a shorter meeting than it would be at the middle and high school. He's looking at a 45 to 60-minute meeting with the students and the adult team, training them on how to collect school climate data at the school. So I don't know that it's the safe school data, but there will be some data collection being made by the student and the team, and then they'll be training them on how to respond to it. They would be working on team building, developing team identity, mission, understanding the youth action process, developing a video to communicate to fellow students, staff, and parents the purpose of their team and the data and the expectations for it, engaging student and adult team in analyzing the survey results. So it looks
Okay.
like yes,
Okay.
that's all in there.
All right.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract for B. Preble in the amount of $38,692 to be funded fully by grant.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain?
Abstain.
Yes, 500.
Excellent, thank you.
Great.
I think that'll be, I'm looking forward to hearing.
Board general
Yeah.
observations.
Yeah.
I think that's gonna be really
Reviewed our
good.
school board
general
comments.
business.
General business, public minutes, October 5th, 2022.
I make a motion to approve the public minutes from October 5th, 2022.
I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained. 500. Motion passes. Why is this update now? No. Mr. Taunton will present our finance and operations update. Mr. Doug Taunton?
All right, great.
You ready?
Thank you. I'm ready. Yeah. So there's been some mention already about the 2024 budget. While it's been a struggle, I think it's been a nice productive struggle. We understand that people are going to be looking at every line. Therefore, you know, we're looking at every line more than one time. There's been a lot of good work knowing where we're at and trying to kind of respect the town and taxpayers to level fund when we can. You know, obviously, that's not always possible when supplies go up, fuel go up, things like that, as well as, you know, the contract goes up for salaries, which is a good thing, because, you know, inflation is happening as well. So it's good that our teachers and our assistants and our workers are seeing an increase in that. But where we can, we are looking to level fund. You know, we've had some good conversations, we've had some tough conversations, we have some more tough conversations to go. And then we are looking forward to presenting it to the board, to the budget committee, and to the town. So we are still on track to have it ready for October 26th. Have it out by then. The finance,
Can I just ask the BA report link, if I send that, the actual BA report link to the budget committee, are they able, do they have access to all those documents within there?
do you copy it or
It's
just
a
use my
PDF.
link? It's
So
PDF.
the links are in there.
Yep, so it would work for them.
But the
Yep.
the Google Sheets are not, right? The Google
If
Sheets.
you hover above the share button, I'm seeing
Sometimes
anyone.
I know,
anyone
some
with the link can
documents
access.
show that and some don't, so I didn't know.
When I put them in here, I purposely put anyone with a link can get into
Okay.
them.
Okay.
So-
All right, perfect. So I'm gonna send them the link because otherwise I'm gonna be exporting PDFs like close to 200 pages of documents. So, okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so in regards to the financials, I tried to break up in a way where we can look at it for the year and people can go back and kind of see a clear way. There's a lot of reports, so there's no real easy way to do that, but how I put them in the table, is that working for people so far? I know we're like.
Yes.
one
Yes.
month in.
Yes,
Absolutely.
very
Fabulous.
clear,
Love it.
easy to understand.
Okay.
It was awesome. Thank you.
And as you looked at the reports, questions, thoughts, concerns?
I had some questions, but I don't see them listed in the agenda anymore, so I don't know where they went, but
Is it on the side?
If you hit the plus sign, it just,
I don't see them anymore at all, so.
Did you hit that thing right there?
What plus sign?
right down here,
Oh, yeah.
maybe?
That them?
No?
I saw them earlier.
Yeah, they were there earlier.
130?
Yeah, I don't know, so I see it down here now, so.
Okay.
One of the reports, it's the September ES report, it's the summary report, the first link, expenditure summary. It says September ES.
Yeah.
Right, this is the report where I now see the Fund 30 Capital Projects Fund, which at our last meeting you'd said would be shared, which is great. I can now see that. My question is how do I read the report? Because it looks like, you know, we have significant negative balances here. And I want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly.
So this report so far is the hardest to read of all of them, partly because the other reports you'll see that it starts with a budget and then it kind of tells you the percent of the budget that you've used, the amount of budget you used, and you've encumbered as well. So because we don't have revenue other than the 4.95 million, this one's going to look a little bit different. And we still have a little bit more cleaning up to do on this report as well. So when the auditors come, we look to make sure that all the expenses that came from last fiscal year were in last fiscal year for this report, as well as for the other funds, and that has taken us a little time to make sure that that is the case. So as you read this one, you'll see that there are some expenses for district-wide. So that might be something like a Dick Henry who's coming in and looking at, kind of fuel or propane, and it has more than just like a one school type of focus on that. And then Griffin Memorial, that's kind of capturing any elementary work. So a big chunk of that was the July invoice from Barker Architect. And then there's some other work where our owner's agent for Windy Hill is also, Dave Ely is our owner's agent for Windy Hill, which also works towards the Griffin Memorial. And then the Litchfield Middle School, that's where it starts becoming more confusing, because now we're seeing a year-to-date expense of negative $457,000.
Right.
So for this month, and hopefully it'll be just this month only, I'd kind of more direct you to the spreadsheets that I created, where it kind of shows the invoice for each one. And then we'd get this cleaned up by next month. So this is something that we're in progress of cleaning up. We've done some work, we just haven't had a chance to finish it.
Did that answer your question?
It's not the best answer, I know. I think the better answer will come next month.
All right, then I'll hold on.
Could we link that spreadsheet somehow in this school board financials? You know that?
So it's all just in one spot?
Yes.
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
That would be helpful. I think
Yep,
the
no,
budget
that's,
committee would appreciate that.
That is a good recommendation. Thank you for that. And, all right, so Fund 30.
So one question I think we've already received from the budget committee, not just once, but twice. And you could tell me if it's here that I just missed it, but I think what they are looking for is, not just the current capital projects fund, but essentially where are we projecting to be at the end of this year?
Yeah, so good question, one that we're working on. So we're still going back and forth with some negotiations with Windy Hill, who they provide the architectural services, engineering, design as we, fulfill the North Branch Phase 2. So North Branch does the work, but a lot of what they're working from comes from Windy Hill. So we need to firm up that price for them, or that expected price. There's no way to fully narrow that down because, again, they work on, if something was supposed to go a certain way and then the product gets delivered, and obviously measurements should have been done before, but if the measurements weren't done right and then something has to change, they now have to redesign things as well. So there's no final number on that until everything is put into the Phase 2 project at the middle school. But we're working on getting a better idea of what that will be. Resilient is the commissioning agent, so we do have a firm number for that contract. Then.
So are you continually updating that spreadsheet that was shown at the public meeting, the one that you're gonna link into
So the
here?
fiscal year 23 by
Yeah,
vendor
with
and by
all the
month?
bills as they come in.
Yep.
So that will keep our running tally.
That'll keep a running tally, but it's also
Current
important to us to kind of know where we're gonna most likely end. And again, that's gonna be like a range where we might think we're gonna end at this amount, but it could be a little bit below or a little bit above that. So there's no way to get an exact amount, but we wanna get as close as we can for this. And what's making it a little bit harder too is because of the delays in, material, for especially like kitchen material, and then the delays in kind of the work on Phase 2 to begin with.
Yep.
The kitchen work is now going to start at the end of the school year. So, which will start in June, but then a week or so later, we'll move on to the next fiscal year.
Yep.
So that's gonna, I don't know if complicate is the right word, but it's going to have some things which are
Some bills are
specific to
gonna be in
fiscal
the
year
fund next
23
following year.
and now fiscal year
Yep.
24.
So do you have that range right now?
We do not, because we're still connecting
Yeah.
with them.
Okay.
So
And do you think
we,
in the after we get through budget, toward the end of the year, we'll have a better sense?
I think by the next school board meeting, if latest the following after that, by a month, within 2 weeks or a month, we should be able to have a pretty good idea on the range.
Okay. That's very helpful, thank you.
Great.
There was this was also one of the comments, it looks like it's now corrected and it's increased, but on the September FY '23 Capital Projects Fund 30 spreadsheet, the one that you were referencing a moment ago,
Yeah,
there was a discrepancy in the totals between the month tab and the vendor tab as of last night. And then as of today, I see it's increased and now reconciled. So I don't know what changed there, but.
so that was just simple error entry by me. As I put it in, it was supposed to be 1,500. I put in 1,150.
Okay.
So thank you for catching that. So I went
Yep.
back, I said, where did I make my mistake? And there it was. So,
Right.
so thank you.
Oh, is that the highlighted box
Yeah,
down? Okay.
that was good
Yeah.
catch.
Oh, I see it down here now under the vendor tab.
Yep.
Got it.
And I'm leaving it highlighted because, again, I just want to go back and check one more time that it's 1,500, which I believe it is, and not 1,000.
Yeah, I mean, it was a few
150.
hundred, but
Yes, yeah.
when all eyes are on this stuff. Okay.
Donation to LMS and GMS.
Excuse me one second. Do you wanna mention the SAFE grant for next meeting?
Yeah, do we have that on
Have it
the,
on your report,
Yeah,
It's mine. I just want to.
just to give them
Sorry,
a
I
heads
was-
up.
that's all right.
yeah,
I'm like, where'd it go?
I don't like that.
so as we look to accept unanticipated revenue, one of those things that are coming up this year is the SAFE grant, where we put in for multiple things that have happened at each of the schools. So it would be radios at each of the school, handheld radios, which we've talked about this a little bit before, as well as the repeaters at the high school and middle school. So all of those went into the first round of SAFE grants. All of those were accepted. Then went into the second round of SAFE grants was additional radios, the repeater for the elementary school, and then we'll see if this happens, to get reimbursed for some of the blue light work or to do additional blue light work, which could be helpful as well. So we will be receiving, Michelle, do you have the total?
Have it on me, but, wait a minute.
But I might have it here too, because you wrote up the,
It's, I think I came up with like a little over 105,000. Total.
yeah, $105,161. So, our next board meeting, we're looking to have that public hearing, again, kind of at the beginning. Michelle's got the notice all ready to go out, so we'll have that public hearing. We'll talk about where the grant's coming from, which is SAFE Grant, which has gone out to all the schools in New Hampshire to apply for. And the purpose of the grant, obviously, is to make schools safer for everybody who's in the school. And where we put in for specific things. So as we accept the money that will go to those specific things that we put into. So again, it will go towards the repeaters and the radios this first time through. Hopefully, we'll be rewarded with some more SAFE Grant money after their round two, and we'll kind of continue to work that towards those specific things. So that will be public hearing at the next school board meeting.
Great.
Questions on that? All right.
I think it's great that you're giving a heads up of what's gonna happen at the next meeting, because oftentimes we have these public hearings on the agenda and nobody knows what they're about, so
They're posted, aren't
I
they?
appreciate you.
They're usually.
Where are they
Heads up.
posted?
I'm sorry?
They're posted.
In
They-
the public.
well, they
in the-
will be
Yes, they're
posted.
posted to the paper.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Donation to LMS and GMS. Do
Yeah.
share.
So Michelle has more of that paperwork than I do, so if you don't mind sharing, yeah, so she's done a
It's
good
kind
job
of a
of
last
coordinating.
minute thing this morning. We were made aware of a couple of donations, under $5,000, of course. One from the law office of Richard Shea, for $1,000 to LMS for Nature's Classroom.
Nice.
And another donation to GMS from the GMS PTO for $1,500, with $1,000 of it going to recess supplies $250 going to the district to help with line painting in the parking lot, and $250 for B-bots?
What?
Is that
Oh,
what it says?
B-bots?
B-bots?
Can I see that?
I think they're little, programmable robots, basically.
For
Yeah,
like the
they're
Lego
little-
League.
They're little tiny ones that you can program and make.
And they do things,
Although
so.
it looks like BCC bots.
It
That's why
does,
was
but I
curious,
figured
but
it
I
was
think-
B-bots.
B-bots.
I'm glad you read it.
So those are the two donations.
We don't need to accept it
You
because it's
don't
under
need
$5,000.
to, but it's up to the board
It's
if
nice
you
to
want
acknowledge
to.
them.
That's why we bring it forward, so that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Great.
Great.
We definitely appreciate those, so, yeah. So one thing I have on my agenda too, and I don't know if we're ready to talk about it or not, is that independent report.
Is that under the 2022 DOE 25?
No, it's underneath,
It's on his report.
it's on my report, so we had
Back up, sorry.
the audit report and/or the independent report. We went over last time that the three major findings that the auditors will come back with, which is not a surprise, but again, that they will state as, those are three major findings. There will be some smaller findings, which happen every year, I think, for pretty much every school.
Right.
You know, the auditors are also trying to get you moving in the direction of best practice, things like that along those ways as well.
So you had those questions that you sent out.
Yep.
Did you get any responses back?
Yes. From myself, added to the document.
Which,
So when I checked before, it was a little while ago.
I added it in this morning.
Okay.
I
Find
don't
the
see
link. I did not have a chance to get in there, I'll be honest.
Is it under this document?
It's under the one Doug shared on October 5th.
October 5th.
Yep.
Yeah, it's labeled independent report, is how it starts.
Right. So in my view, the objectives of the independent audit report are, one, a third-party evaluation of specifically project costs and accounting practices associated with the various projects at the schools, Canopy, Phase 1, Phase 2, GMS work and planning. The second objective being identification and really what are the root causes, the clear root causes, other than speculation that we all think we know. What are those root causes for the deficit in fiscal year 22 and the cause for the continued deficit in fiscal year 23 in a report, and then ultimately what their final opinion is on failures within process, violations of applicable laws, if applicable, local policies that are in place, et cetera.
Still
have any
trying to find
idea?
the document.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on.
Where's that?
Want me to share it with you?
There- No, I just found it. Okay.
So if you search independent
Oh, here we
report
go.
in Google Docs,
Sorry.
I got it.
Doug had sent it out to us,
It was emailed on
in his
October.
email
Yes.
on October 5th while we were, I think we're still here.
Do we have any idea how much something like that would cost?
Well,
that's,
Like-
that's,
Yeah,
that's the-
yeah.
that kind of.
Did you,
I haven't gone to anybody because I didn't know the scope of it.
who do we have do it? Another BA from another district, another accounting firm? I'm,
Audit. It has to be an auditor.
For an
Yeah.
audit, it would be, but what about an independent
yeah,
report?
You could have an independent review, sure.
right,
Yeah.
that's,
Questions you're looking to answer.
Again, I think we talked about this as being something that's important to understand the root causes, but the concern is the cost. So here we are
Right.
with, we have more expenses than we have revenue right now, and so spending a significant amount of money investigating why that is seems a little bit counterintuitive. Although, again, it could be money well spent, so
Right.
I go both sides. I think the scope is right, so what's outlined in the document, the scope is correct, so if we can get some quotes or get some idea
I
of
would
how much it
like
would
that.
cost, I think that's the next step.
Independent.
So I would like, not just the failures, but recommended corrective measures. And then, so the questions really your answer, you have that. How far back in years, for me, it is that Fund 30, that was the biggest problem. So if we're to contain costs, I feel like if we focus on that, And then how far back are we looking to go? I mean, we just started doing these capital projects, right? I mean, we had a break. I mean, I would say the start of the LMS and the GMS planning, that's kind of where it all started, so I don't see a need to go back farther than that. And then interviewing current employees, I'm not sure that, I mean, to what extent do you think that, I'm not sure to what extent current employees would need to be interviewed necessarily.
There would
I
only
think it's
be
looking, maybe
two.
looking at policies or, and then the numbers. I could be wrong. What do you think, Andrew?
Yeah, I don't know about the employees. I think Fund 30, as long as that covers all of the projects, which I think it would, but I don't know that for certain, right? That's the scope, and that's why I tried to clear out, or specifically call out each individual projects that I think would fall under Fund 30.
And they're all intertwined.
They're all intertwined, and I don't know if some of this was through the general fund. I have no idea, right? But I want to call out each specific
Right.
project.
So some of the projects that were completed that wasn't Fund 30, again, just only going back to last year and this year, would have been the booster pumps at the high school.
Yeah.
So that ran through the general fund,
I'm not
as well as the lighting went through the general
I'm not
fund.
talking about
Other
that
than Yeah, the middle school work, phase 1, phase 2, canopy was through Fund 30
And GMS.
and
right.
GMS.
Yep, so those are the four that I think are our, those are the four that I think are our true root of the problem.
Yep.
Those are the four I think need the focus.
So can you get us an estimate, or
Yep, so
we
focus
need to
on,
give him direction?
I don't know that we
focus on
need,
Fund 30.
I don't know that we need recommendations though,
You don't.
right?
You think
Because
we'll be able to
I
figure
don't,
those out ourselves?
if an auditor comes in, I don't know that they're gonna give us
Yeah,
recommendations.
I don't know
Okay.
if they
No.
can.
Okay,
Right,
all right.
so I just wanna set that
Okay.
expectation.
Right.
All right. So another thing we had talked about before, and I don't see it in your recommendations, but I just want to have a discussion about it, is do we want this accountant to take the time to break out the actual cost between Canopy, Phase 1, Phase 2, and GMS?
I don't wanna necessarily pay for that, right? If the
Yeah.
expectation is, or per our last meeting, the understanding is once we're through the budget process, then we're gonna be able to do that effort. That was my takeaway from our last meeting.
As
agree.
a whole, we'll be able to do it through the budget process. I'm not sure what you're saying.
So
Oh.
when
Fund
the
30.
board had kind of asked
Yeah,
us
go
to
ahead.
look into that, I
Yeah.
said, it just wouldn't be possible now as we go through the budget.
Yeah.
If our goal is to kind of make sure we're meeting with the principals and the directors in a way which can present a budget which is responsible and detailed, then we just wouldn't have time for more than that as of now.
Focus
Along
on
with our
fiscal
regular stuff that we're
or
doing.
budget and
Yes.
then pick this
We'll
back
move
up.
Oh, and
ahead.
then, oh, and
And
then
then
you're saying
after
you
that's
can do
done-
that?
Yeah,
Yeah, we,
Okay.
it's like a
Alright.
boot on our neck to
Got
finish
it.
the budget, and
Yeah,
then we can.
exactly. Okay, so you can commit to that later then. All right, got it.
That was my takeaway
I'm
from our
sorry,
last
I
meeting.
misunderstood
Yeah,
that.
no, you're good.
Okay.
So I guess I just want to clarify, because I don't know if we're going to just take this document as written with the questions on it and give it to an independent auditor. But I'm a little concerned with, Andrew, your bullet points number 3, because I think it assumes that it was laws in violation or policies. My understanding is that our legal and town legal have looked at this and said there were no laws violated. So if it said final opinion of whether law was violated, at least that's leaving
I didn't say
open-ended.
broken. Right, to me, there's a material difference.
What's violated versus broken?
You can be in violation of, well, I listed off 10 and statutes that I believe the school district is in violation of. I know that we have our own internal financial policies out of our 271 that certainly I think we're in violation of. I
But
think
legal
that should be.
disagreed with you.
So did in town.
They disagree with me on the actual state statutes. We have our own school board policies that have
But
never
those
been
aren't
looked at or
laws,
compared
so
to.
I would take
They're-
laws in
they're
violation.
not laws, they're-
out.
They're called
Policies, fine.
The
policies.
policy's in
Policies.
violation. I'm not,
Policies.
my concern is the final opinion of laws in violation of. There were none as determined by our legal and the budget committee town legal.
Then remove it.
Well, I'm just bringing up the concern, if we're gonna hand this document over, versus are we gonna be drafting a different memo for what we're
I think we
asking them
should draft
to
a
do?
different
I
one
think there's
once
a
we settle
massive,
it.
there's a massive discrepancy here between legally and technically, right?
Legally, I agree with you. The lawyers have come back and said no laws were broken. It doesn't mean to me, that we still aren't in violation of something, right? In my opinion, there were laws broken that we've now, as a board, collectively made the decision to wash it under the rug.
Not true.
and to
There
move
weren't
forward.
laws broken.
I don't disagree. That is, I said in my opinion, right?
I think a violation of a law is a fact. It's not an opinion. I think we violated a law or we did not. Legal opinion is that we did not violate.
What
the
happens
laws.
if you didn't hit the September 30th date, which I believe was the question from Mr. Taylor?
It was, and what would happen was, we would have been in arrears, and we would have,
Not been able to set the tax rate.
not been able to set the tax rate.
Which is a violation of state law?
But that didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
Because the board made the decision to cover it.
Yes, we did.
We did.
All right.
So we
that's
didn't break the law.
That's the answer I wanted to hear. Thank you.
We didn't break the law. I feel like you're setting us up for something.
I'm not setting you up for anything.
But this, again. So the accountant is not gonna be able to, they don't know
It
the
seems
laws
like,
that you're talking about. I mean, it's like they're gonna look at the numbers.
Then
you know,
remove
they
the
don't
first part of the
they're not
bullet.
attorney.
And let them look at our internal policies and see, right? I mean, we have policies that talk about finances, right? That should be part of the evaluation, in my opinion, as well.
So that's all well and good. If we did violate our own policies, we're taking corrective action at this point.
Right.
I guess I see it as, we've identified the problem, we've changed our reporting practices, we have a brand-new BA, so that person is not even any longer with the district. We all, see the mistake that was made and have taken responsibility for it, and what do we gain by continuing to punish us over this error that happened?
It's not a punishment, it's an auditor's opinion. That's all it is, it's a document.
but I guess that's where I wanna narrow in, because I'm not sure that this should be an audit. We have an audit.
And an audit.
To me, this is more of an independent review, and I
I
would.
like that.
I'm
But-
fine with the semantics.
Okay.
But it might not be a CPA, it might not be an auditing company that comes in, it could be that there is some BA that retired 2 years ago that is familiar with policies and school district budgets that can come in and provide us more of an independent review, recommendations.
Comparing to policies, comparing to processes. I mean, I do think the auditor aspect is important for the process wise.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure the person's qualified.
Well, that's what we need to talk
But
about.
that's why I think, I mean, maybe there's also a BA or some other attorney component that has to do with policies.
I think,
Because then, to me, that's the next steps, like what, are there policies that we need to, are there processes that we need to clean up and then codify in our
to
policies?
me, what should we do moving forward is far more important than finding fault or blame or what was broken, what was not broken. You know what I mean?
We need to find a new path forward, exactly, and understanding what happened, so.
To ensure it doesn't happen again.
But I think we have to have some sort of agreement on this board, what we're asking Doug to research and find,
Yeah.
because,
I'm gonna actually suggest, I'm not sure this is our job.
yeah,
I
maybe
think
that's
the
not.
board needs to find somebody to do whatever it is you think you need to do, because I'm so confused what you're even asking at this point.
Yeah.
And I think that then we're gonna be accused of finding the fox to
friend.
guard the hen house. And if you guys wanna pursue something, I think that's within the board's purview to pursue. But we're spinning circles, and, frankly, I'm frustrated by the continued allegations of law violation, because there was no law violation. The moment there was a whiff of an error, we were on top of it, and we took all the proper corrective actions in guidance by our auditors and by our legal team. So this suggestion that, there was like a knowing willingness almost of legal violation is just
Feels
like
like a witch
not.
hunt.
We'll agree to disagree on that one.
You can absolutely state that point, but then I would charge that the board ought to pursue
Be
that,
happy to take
because
that on
I
and
don't think
report
that
back to the
that's
board
within
with
our
independent
purview.
auditors that will be willing to do this. I'll research it. glad to take that on.
That's by
But that's the
vote
will of the board.
Right, the will of the board. And
Somebody
keep
else
in-
would like to take that? Please.
Or maybe two people.
Are two of us gonna get together during the day and make phone calls? I mean, how are two of us gonna do that?
Easily. I mean, you could, I think it's an auditor, but maybe it's also a BA. I mean, maybe it's two pieces.
I wanna know the
This,
cost
this
before
piece
we
is
do
just
anything.
researching the who. It'll still come back to the board for the decision.
Yeah,
right.
prices and
Yeah.
what the
Right.
scope is.
Right.
I would suggest maybe we work on a document first, and then we can figure out what are we looking to achieve, you know? Maybe take these questions and, you know, in this document, and it becomes, you know, we come up with like an RFP of what we're looking for before we start making any phone calls.
No, the document was shared 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So what's the
So
direction?
Anyone?
Set a
Was the-
deadline on
Does
it?
the board want another 2 weeks to review it and add points?
No, but the comments that you added, Andrew, were added yesterday or today?
Yeah.
So I think we're having the conversation now about the comments that were added. I thought Doug's questions were suitable, and
Okay.
I agreed with them, so.
I just feel like people are, I don't know, it's just, I feel like we're not going anywhere and we've lost another half hour. We just need, write down what you want, you wrote down what you want. I didn't get a chance to look at it this afternoon. I just checked to see if there were anything on the agenda. And we can revisit this next week, or 2 weeks, sorry. And I'd like to know the dollar amount and the questions. I don't believe we broke any laws. I think we fixed it. And I don't wanna say moving on, because we need to learn from our mistakes,
Right,
absolutely. And maybe we could find a better way to do things. So is everyone in agreement, we need 2 more weeks?
2 more
Or
weeks to review the
you-
document?
Yes,
And put comments
and put
on it.
comments on it?
Can we work on it as a work document, like just edit this document?
Yeah.
That would
That's
work.
all been shared?
And we'll
Yeah.
bring it
And
next
maybe
week
we
or
have
2
a
weeks.
deadline of get your comments in by
Yeah.
Friday.
So I'll tell you, Andrew, your 1 and 2 are fine with me. What you added with a third, I'm gonna read them out loud because people at home are like, what are you talking about? Third-party evaluation of specifically project cost accounting practices associated with the canopy, phase 1, phase 2, GMS work/planning. I think that's
agree with
great,
that.
I think that's important, and I think that'll get us some key information. Number 2, identification of root causes for deficit in FY '22 and continued deficit in FY '23. Again, fully in favor of, think we need to have a good understanding of that. I think the audit answers the question, but
The audit we already had.
the question is that an independent audit? Is that someone who's worked heavily with the district? So do we want to have somebody who hasn't worked heavily with the district to come in? So 1 and 2, I am good with. It's the third one that I take issue with. So if we want to investigate independent companies, if you want to investigate that would look into number 1 and number 2, you would have my support on that.
Mine as
To
well.
bring the cost to the board and let us know what that would look like. I would
didn't read
not be in agreement with number 3.
I'm 100%.
So if in the next 2 weeks,
didn't
oh, I'm
read
sorry,
number 3.
I didn't read number 3, okay. Number 3.
I read them all at the beginning, but it's been a while now.
That was like a half hour
I know, it
ago.
was a while ago, I get that.
Final opinion of failures within process, laws in violation of, policies in violation of, etc. So that one I'm not in favor of because I think it assumes failures, it assumes laws and violations, it assumes policies in violation. So
It kind of assumes intention as well.
I think that's how you're interpreting it. That black and white, that's not how I interpret it,
Okay.
but.
All right.
But it assumes 1, 2, and 3. I mean, it assumes that there were failures in process. It assumes that there were laws in violation, and we're asking them to tell us what they are. I don't agree with number 3, but I agree with the research of 1 and 2. So if you wanted to move forward in the next 2 weeks to keep this rolling, rather than sitting on a document for 2 weeks, I would be okay with you researching the cost for.
Me too.
I think that's great, but I think I'd like to give the board the opportunity to add in whatever
Okay.
thoughts you might have.
I'm fine with that.
And I'd also like I said, I'm glad I'm changing number 3. right? Does the board feel it's important to include a policy review, and a school board policy review as a part of the evaluation?
Sure.
From us or from an auditor?
From an auditor as a part of the scope of the work,
I don't know that an auditor would be able to weigh in on that.
or an independent reviewer, whatever we're calling it.
Okay.
I guess it depends who it
We might be
is.
talking about two different.
It may be.
Yeah.
You're talking about policy as far as like the school board policies, or policies like what to do every month with financials, or like that
No,
recommendation?
like
of
we
what to do?
have school board policy, we have, I don't know, 5 financial policies within our school board approved policies, right? How does this, whatever findings come about,
Okay.
whatever root causes come about, how do they align to whatever policies we have in place?
Yep.
So again, I'm happy to wait 2 weeks, or I'm happy to say move forward with finding someone to do 1 and 2, and then maybe by Friday we edit and add whatever thoughts we want to add in there. But I don't.
This Friday?
Yeah,
I
but if we
can't do it
don't
by
agree,
Friday.
what happens
I
if
have
we
to have
don't
the
agree?
weekend.
Then he can't research it.
I would
so
like the full board to weigh in on.
Then we'll wait 2 weeks.
And we can weigh in during the week. Is everyone in agreement with that?
Wait 2 weeks.
And then
that all
maybe,
right?
I mean, I mean, if we wanna do it by, say, Sunday night, by Monday, I can commit to that, so we don't have to wait 2 weeks.
My only
I could
concern
do
is
most
if we're
of it
gonna
over
be
the weekend.
adding things,
Yeah.
and what if you add something that I don't agree with, or I add something you don't
Right,
agree with,
true.
we're not gonna have
Yeah,
a discussion.
Yeah, that's a good point,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think if we're gonna be modifying what the goals are, we should circle back on November 2nd.
so we'll add that to the agenda for 2 weeks.
Yep.
Michelle?
Yep.
Alrighty.
All right, so on a,
I have shared that document with Michelle, so
Okay.
she can provide a link to
Okay.
whatever happens to it in the next 2 weeks for the second.
Thank you.
so on a positive note, the DOE 25 was accepted by the state, so that's good. That feeds into the MS 25, so there are cover sheets that the board signs every year. I got you the DOE 25 and the MS 25 pretty much as soon as I could after it got accepted. I don't know if that was enough time for you guys to feel comfortable signing the sheets. I don't know if you guys have questions on it as
I
well.
haven't had a chance to look at it.
So the purpose of the DOE 25 is to really just look at how money is spent within the district. So, as well as the revenue that comes in, to account for all the revenue, account for all the expenses. And then what it also does is it can go to a per pupil cost, elementary school, middle school, and high school. So anything that kind of came into the district, and anything that left the district, no matter what fund it was, it funnels itself into the DOE 25.
Yes.
Do you need a
one
signature
is just
from,
signed.
you need a signature
way,
from the
doesn't matter.
chair, is that correct?
I think it's more than just the chair.
Board?
I think it's definitely the chair, but I think it's the,
It's the full board on both of them.
When does that need to be signed by?
well,
I think we're having.
I have not had a
Whoa, We're
chance to
having two
review it.
conversations here.
Okay.
We have, what?
I'm listening to the presentation by
Yeah.
our business administrator.
What,
so the question was, when does it need to be signed by? So even though it's been approved by the state, I still have to upload the signature to that, and I wouldn't upload the MS 25 to the DRA until I have it signed by the board. So we're not moving forward with the DRA until we have kind of it signed by the board. And again, I know you guys only got it on Monday, I think it was, because that's when I got it returned back approved on Monday as well.
appreciate the email.
So
Okay.
Yeah.
what does a delay of 2 weeks on that signature mean?
I don't know if it means much right now, because when Mike heard back from somebody, they said only one town in the whole state has had their tax rate setting done at this point.
Yeah, that was in Monday's call with the commission, or with the department, and it was Mark Mangiello who oversees the financial thing. So he said, continue to work with the department to get your DOEs completed, and he said only one town has actually moved to tax rate setting, so.
So other towns have definitely got their DOE 25 and MS 25 in. I'm thinking we're gonna go the bottom of that line anyway, so what does 2 weeks? I don't know. It depends on how quickly they run through things at the DRA.
I feel like the town wants it sooner than
Yeah.
that. They're already talking.
Well, that- and
Last
that's-
week, they already started talking, saying, that they were waiting on our forms, so.
Yeah.
And I know
It's been
we're
approved, they
ahead
should
of
see
time.
it now.
What?
If it's been approved, the town should see it? I'm assuming yes.
Yeah, I'm fine with anyone seeing it.
Right, but in the systems, I'm assuming if
Yeah,
it was
in the
approved
system,
on
is it
Monday
showing
afternoon, the
pending?
town should now see it.
I don't know, because it's approved within the Department of Education system, which the town wouldn't see. It's the DRA where I can see what the town does and they can see what I do. So it's that uploading it into the DRA, even though the DOE 25 creates the MS 25, I have to upload the MS 25 to the DRA. So it's a DRA webpage, which links the school and the town.
I mean, do you have a deadline from the town as to when, like, they
Town
need
clerk
it
has
before?
already reached out to,
Request
to us.
Okay.
And is, really would like it as soon as possible.
Yes, that was the impression I got, the
Because
budget committee last week.
Taxpayers are reaching out, wondering where their tax bill
And
is gonna be
Yep.
at the time.
that is contingent upon our signature.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Got it. Right.
So those are circulating in gray and in red.
Anything else, Doug?
Nope, that's it.
Actually, I moved under Doug's report because I had put this into the non-public meeting and it shouldn't be there. So before we move off of business and operations, if you look at what's highlighted in green, when we authorized, the application for state building aid, we didn't put a dollar amount in it. And so the state said they wanted dollar amounts in there because, it should tie back that the board authorized it. So when Kyle submitted the paperwork, he filed for a $32 million project, right? So a motion to authorize the school district to apply for state building aid in the amount of $32 million needs to be recorded in our minutes. So I think this is the right time to do that.
Does the fact that they're asking mean they're considering our building aid
Well,
application?
they're carefully considering all 17.
I'm sure they are, but
And-
maybe
and
that's a good sign.
We don't want to lose out on a technicality, do we? So
Okay.
I think we want to make sure that the numbers tie.
Well, on that note, I'll make a motion to authorize the school district to apply for state building aid on a project up to $32 million.
I will second, but I have a question. Is that enough?
The-
Because
the-
we've talked about it, it's going to go up.
The problem is that's what we applied for.
Okay.
So,
It has to match the
so now, because I actually said, can we put up to 35? And they
Right.
said, no, it has to be clean. So it's got to match what we applied for, which
So we
is
need to
32
find
million.
some donors.
But along those lines, it would be more expensive than 32 million. So
Right.
if people are listening, we're not
Yeah.
expecting it to be 32 million. We're
Yeah.
expecting it to be more than that.
Right, right, okay.
And does this assume that we would go forward with the project next year?
There's
What
no.
are the parameters around that?
So remember that the state is allocating funding for the next biennium. And so they just need a total pool amount to then go forward to the committee and say, here's what we've had for requests, what do you have for funding, and how do we do it? So this just locks Litchfield in it, having asked for 32 million. And then,
So if we don't move forward, right, we could, and others do get selected this next year, we would still be kind of first in line for the following year, is
we would
that
be
correct?
in
And-
line, not necessarily
or
first
sorry,
in line.
sorry,
So
we
it
would be
depends on who
in
else-
line already, but
Right.
at that point, next year, could we then adjust that amount
No.
at that
It-
point? You can't.
Unfortunately, the deadline to submit the billing aid was June 1st or June.
It is what it is.
June 30th.
Well, we know we're not gonna get 32 million, is it, it's like a.
They calculate a percentage.
It's
of
a
it.
percentage.
Our best case is 30% or 10 million roughly.
Okay, got it.
Excellent. Budget transfer
We have,
from,
we have to
what?
take a vote on that.
oh, sorry, I missed that.
We have a motion in a second.
Oh, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. 500, the motion carries.
All right, budget transfer for,
For mowing services. Who's doing that?
I hope Doug.
So, yeah, so,
Really under his
They-
number, he's a C now, you're C.
Well, just to recap,
Yeah.
at the last meeting, the board voted to approve the budget transfers, but
Correct.
not that one, so.
Yeah, we needed specifics.
Was that just not on the list? I don't
No,
know.
No, it was on the
Andrew-
list, there was a
On the
question
list.
because of the amount.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
what Anna's trying to do as we create expense any money is to account for as accurately as we can. So she was moving money into the line where it would be coming out of. So we would have more of that accurate representation of those services at the outdoors of GMS. So,
And that was sent today. I saw it. I don't have it in front of me.
then I gave, what was sent today was also the invoices for,
Answered your question, Andrew, about
yeah.
the
And are we
to
gonna,
date.
are we gonna continue with them?
no, so even before, Andrew's request, which was a good request, we had already been talking about the services that are being provided. And I want to start by saying the services provided have been great. Like everyone, I've heard from multiple
spectacular.
people.
I know, people
GMS,
have
it
commented
looks
about
that
GMS, yeah.
GMS looks great. So, we have that to fall back on. We've spent some money, but at least it looks good. Moving forward, we do not plan on using Dalton to provide any mowing or weed whacking services at all. That's again with, if we're fully staffed on ground.
They filled a gap when it was
So
needed.
they filled the gap
Yeah.
when it was needed. And now moving forward, we've talked with grounds, I've talked with Dalton, I sat down and talked with Dalton Eddie today. Had a good conversation with him about that as well. He understands.
Is he gonna
So-
plow still?
He's going to plow.
Okay.
Yep, so.
But it's not gonna snow this year, so
No,
we're good.
all right, we're all set. We're all set.
Yeah, thank you for putting that together. I was sticker shocked a bit after our last meeting on the price of mowing, which is why we tabled it, right? And so this actually provides greater clarity. I mean, it sounds like it might be a moot point at this point, given we're changing directions going forward, but I am still sticker shocked, right? We're mowing GMS twice a week for several months, it looks like.
No, it was, well, to get the job done took 2 days each
So it-
week by multiple people. Like
so
it's
it took-
mowing and weed whacking.
About 24 hours, if you do the math, it's about 24 hours per week just to mow GMS.
Mow and weed whack every week. Yep.
That sounds
And that's-
insane. I mean, that just sounds so astronomically high, I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm not, I mean.
3 days, 3 business
Main thing I
days.
can say is that we're moving to a different
But you picked
direction.
up on this and saw that it was excessive? I mean, I do it for $500.
Well, I saw that we should have the people within our budget to do
Now
it.
that we're fully staffed,
Now that we're
correct?
fully staffed, yep.
Yep.
And then the goal would be to be fully staffed on the custodians too, so on those weeks where we might have to do a little bit more lining, Dave who works hard, Dave Ross could go out and mow, weed whack or something like that too, and he's up for that. I mean, I think
Right.
any of us would be up for mowing for 4 hours a day on a nice day too, so.
And then the grounds people come inside to work inside in the winter months. Besides plowing and all the other.
Yeah, when they're not
winters,
out snow
salting,
blowing and
yeah.
salting and stuff like that, yeah, they'd be working inside, yeah. So they've done, when it's been raining lately, they've been making sure that the oil and everything's been changed in the snow blowers and they're ready to go. But yeah, Dave has plans for them for the winter as well.
Any other questions, Andrew?
No, I'm just, I mean, to give the public an eye of what is being presented tonight, it's essentially year-to-date, January through present, of $58,000.
But again, some of that is plowing,
Yeah, some of it's all money to this one vendor,
yeah.
right, including plowing, yes. And plowing is contractual, whether it snows or not, that's what we pay.
That is correct.
Yep.
So looking back at the contracts, that was what the school district asked for many years ago at this point. I don't know if it was like 9 or 10 years ago, that was a request for the proposal, went with a flat fee for every month, and that's what's kind of carried forward since then.
Some of the costs are also to move furniture at LMS.
Right, because it was all
Which
hands on deck.
necessary.
During
Yep.
COVID,
During
absolutely.
COVID,
but
we
now
had
we're-
to get the building clear so that construction could start.
We
right?
made it.
Well,
through
we
the
also had to
winter.
get
Well,
the
this
building.
is this year cost,
brought
so
back
this
in.
is,
So
And
this
brought
is-
back in.
yeah.
Yeah, so
Right.
a lot of this has to do with, the summer again, North Branch and the contracts, they did a lot of work and they were occupying a lot of space. And they were they took on a big chunk knowing that they had a deadline, but they worked right up to that deadline. Which meant that we had to then bring back all the furniture in while the teachers were here, but before the students were here. So there was a lot of work to get that back in.
2 or 3 day window that you guys had to
Yeah.
get it looking.
Yeah, and at that point, as we still are, we're down in our custodial staff.
But now we're
So
ready to
although we
shift.
brought all our custodial staff over to LMS to help out with the moving of furniture, when you're down several people, we needed extra help at that time. And we did get school up and running, which was
Yeah.
great for the kids and great for the community.
Were they also, trimming bushes and stuff like that, like landscaping things, or is it truly
There was
just mowing
mulch.
and weeding?
Mulch.
Mulch
That
is
was a
in
good
here,
place
yeah.
for mulching though.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Delivery
is
side of it,
some
yeah.
of this like trimming
saying.
bushes, the mowing and weed whacking?
I don't know how much, I've been more inside GMS. I've walked around several times. I don't know how many bushes
I mean,
GMS
that
has.
it would
They
help
don't
to
have
explain
many.
some more of it, but it does seem like a lot.
One question I would just ask is, what are the town costs for mowing Sawmill, or for mowing
I don't know.
Dara, or plowing those parking lots? I mean,
That's a good
we're
question.
examining this and we're kind of making a judgment, but to be honest, I know what it costs to plow my driveway. I'm not really sure that I know in southern New Hampshire for a comparable amount of mowing or whatever.
I
I
don't
mean,
know
how
what the
does that
acreage
come
is
out?
either.
I don't know.
I have 1 acre and it's $150 a week. And it's one of those stand-up.
Well, I mean, I think the challenge here is this is per hour and not
Yeah.
per job, right? And so when I look at this particular summary and I see, all right, we're essentially paying 24 hours per week to mow just GMS, that's excessive. I mean, it takes 4 man-hours to mow Sawmill, total.
You know that?
I know that for a fact.
Okay.
I
That's
don't
mu-
think
GMS
they
is much
have
bigger than
fast
Sawmill.
mowers.
And it's 2 guys, 2 hours.
The problem is this is fill-in stuff and it wasn't a contract, do you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
So you're paying contractor rate.
My only other
So-
point is, if we do need to go back out and find a third party to do these services for us, for whatever reason, is that an RFP process that we do, or how does that work?
We did it before.
So it was an RFP process for the plowing. I don't know if it was an RFP process for the mowing. It predates me.
It was the former business administrator who
For the
did that.
plowing,
But no, for the mowing.
for the mowing too.
And it was
So how long have they been mowing for us?
I'm sorry?
How long have they been mowing for us? Many years?
They've-
No, it was just, I think it was just that year.
Of
And-
COVID, when we were short a
No, it was before
craftsperson.
that. It was when Mr. Markowitz was here.
So, but this particular
don't-
year, it didn't go out to RFP? We just hired this person?
I don't know much about what happened this year. I just know what happened back
don't-
then.
For the plow, I thought we were doing our own mowing.
That's what I thought.
So-
We
so-
were doing our
Have
own
been,
mowing.
and there was a point where we were understaffed for a bit.
And then they called in Dalton.
And then they called in
RFP.
Dalton. Yeah.
Alrighty, we ready to move on to reports?
Well, do we need
Oh.
to approve that transfer? Because we
Yeah.
didn't
Oh,
approve
yeah.
it
Yeah.
last
If you,
time.
if
All right.
you want to. It's up to you.
So I gotta find it, so I'll make a motion to approve the transfer of, is it the 3780? What is the number? 3076
3076.
to Dalton Mowing.
A second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 500, the motion carries.
Doug, can I just clarify one point? I thought the mowing was 2 7-hour days. So in other words, 2 workers on a 7-hour day for a total of 14 hours. Am I wrong?
Well, either way, it comes out to the same price that we paid per week.
But it's not
So-
24 hours.
No,
didn't
I think it
was.
might be 2 workers for 2 days though, per week, so,
Okay,
yeah.
so I misunderstood that too, because I had anchored on 14
Yeah.
hours.
I mean, so I guess either way you look at it, you either have more hours going into to mow it, or you have a higher per hour cost to mow it, which I think could make people,
I'm okay with the per hour cost, right?
Yeah.
Of the standard
How
rate.
many
I mean, that seems
Yeah.
reasonable to me. It's
Yeah.
the amount of hours that it's taking to do it.
Yeah,
That
on
seems
average, each
astronomical.
week is 28 hours.
Seems astronomical. That's just my read.
Yeah, and the only thing is, again, we should compare apples to apples.
Right.
Where Sawmill is a flat, sandy surface. And that's not the case at GMS. That's like mowing a swamp. So you have to keep in mind that grass is thick, clumpy, and, so that's gonna add time.
Yeah.
I don't know that it adds the amount of time that you're talking about, but it certainly, again, you just gotta keep that in mind.
Are we ready to move on to reports? I am.
Yes.
A brief summary of your committees over the past couple of weeks. Budget committee.
We're gonna start, voting on the town budget tomorrow.
So, I just started following this. So the town brought a budget that's over the tax cap, and it's up to you guys to cut it. Will they give you recommendations where to cut? I'm just asking as, like,
The selectmen they've cut some. I didn't fully watch the 3-hour meeting yet. So there may have been other cuts made in the last hour that I didn't see yet. They made some cuts, but with insurance, rates going up, we're now over,
11%, I believe,
yeah,
is what
we're
they said.
over the cap at this point to 250,000 over. So yes, what I've learned is that is the budget committee's job to bring under the tax cap. And
So they're gonna do the cutting.
they're gonna do the
Okay.
cutting, and they're.
That isn't the way we do it. We just bring in.
No, it's not.
Okay.
No, I mean, then that was a surprise to me, and I
Yeah, it was, I guess I never paid that close attention.
yeah.
We're also not, the school's not bound by a tax cap.
Yeah. So it's.
The budget committee is per voter approved warrant article.
Yeah, so it's a wish list.
It seems like a lot of the one-time expenditures and any, added hours for positions, will probably be pulled out,
Okay,
just to go to a warrant, so.
excellent.
Facilities did not meet.
Emergency management committee?
I think
Meet-
meeting tomorrow,
meet
is
tomorrow.
that right? Okay.
Grading and reporting?
We did meet on Tuesday, which, God, that was yesterday. Okay, we met yesterday. Was a good meeting. We have elected to divide up, elementary school is gonna be having their own separate meeting as compared to secondary, just because some of the topics, that we were
different.
talking about weren't overlapping, and it felt like the elementary was kinda just listening for a while, so. We had a good talk about goals yesterday, and we're ready to meet again in a month and keep going forward.
Great. Joint loss did not meet. PERC did not meet. School start time, Andrew. Website committee?
Nope, not to my knowledge.
Wellness committee?
They canceled.
Yeah,
Oh, that's right.
the meeting
Canceled.
is going to be, I think it's November, November 1st.
All right.
Yeah, 3:30 to 4:30, so.
Town capital improvement plan.
Yes, we met on October 12th. Our next meeting is on the 25th. So Jay Mankara, who's from the National Regional Planning, Community Planning, had put together the proposed matrix as it stands right now with all of the departments from the town. So we kind of went through that and made some assumptions from what their detailed requests had been. And then we discussed the ARPA funds that the town's receiving and where the committee feels like those should be allocated. And so we kind of prioritized what seems to be the town's biggest needs and allocated money in order to bring down the warrants and the request from the town budget, for the town budget. We received, I believe the whole board received the request from Dr. Queenan, who's on the planning board, and she's also the select board representative on the capital improvement planning committee. Request that the select board has decided that we, as a district, would need to present our financial status, show that we've closed out fiscal year 22, and that we have a plan to address the deficit in 23 before we can present our capital improvement plan to the CIP committee. And so I am looking for direction from the board. Personally, I feel like our needs are too great to, kind of forfeit our opportunity to get them included with the town plan. I think a lot of the town departments are basing their requests and their
Do they
plans.
have to meet the select people before they,
Let me finish.
okay?
The CIP depends on what the school district is doing. So I would advocate personally that, and I'm happy to do it, that we submit the DOE and the MS 25 to show that we have closed out fiscal year 22. And, once we get a handle on the project costs going forward and identifying those things in the budget, I'm happy to share that information with, you've already spoken to it at the CIP meetings and we've discussed it here in our meetings. But if the select board is going to require us to go in front of them in order to get our needs included in the town CIP plan, I'm willing to do that. It's too important to not do that.
My opinion is we are two separate entities, and I looked up the laws. We do not report to the select board. We are two separate entities. No offense to the select board, but I don't feel like we need to report to the select board. We give our plan to the capital improvement, and then they give it to planning. I don't think we need to say anything to the selectmen. That's my personal choice. And honestly, it's no offense, it's just the way it runs. School board, selectmen. That's what I got out of the law. I'm no lawyer, but I spoke to somebody about it, and we do not have to speak to the selectmen. That's just my personal opinion. And anyone else's, feel free to share
So
their
does the
opinion.
school then create its own, capital improvement committee?
Well, that's what I was trying to explain from last time. At the School Boards Association, I think it was Monadnock that presented, and so they were talking about their capital improvement plan, and I asked a question in front of everybody. I was like, so do you bring that in front of your budget committee? And they're like, no, we don't. And
What about their selectmen?
and they're a co-op though, so
Select
they had
people.
multiple towns. So after the meeting, I went and I just picked random people. I was like, can you tell me if you, like, where are you from? I was like, as they were all leaving, I'm trying to talk to people like, do you manage your own CIP? Yes. It, like, the budget committee has nothing to do, had no approval over it. And then I even went to Will Phillips at the School Boards Association and I said, okay, so here's what I'm hearing with the people in the audience. Like, what's your experience? And so he said it's customary for schools to manage their own CIP.
Well, the budget committee is not managing this
It's the
town's
select-
either.
Do you mean select board?
It's
Just
the
wanna be
select
clear on that,
board.
right? It's not the budget
Yeah, it's
committee.
not the budget committee.
Yes, right.
Oh,
Yeah.
you were saying budget committee.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not the CIP.
So you did
Yeah.
an informal poll.
I did.
I don't
and
want
then I
to
spoke
rock.
to the attorney.
I just want to
It's-
stay in our lane.
schools.
'Cause-
So what I heard is
Yeah.
the schools typically manage their own CIP.
And it's for the planning committee.
I think that is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in the past, we have managed our own because the town didn't have a capital improvement planning committee. Now that they do, for the last plan, or the last one that was approved, we worked with them.
Then why can't we just go in front of the capital improvement committee?
They won't accept us because the select board has told them no.
And their CIP is a subcommittee of the
Right.
select board.
I didn't know that.
So I see
I
both
don't know.
sides of this. I mean, on the one hand, I feel like this is us, having to pay some dues to be able to, go before the select board and whatnot. But at the same time, I don't feel like there should be hoops to jump through, in order to create that. I think it flies in violation of the intent of the committee, the capital planning committee itself, which is to work cooperatively to
Right.
address the town needs. And so
And no
if-
one reports to.
and
Yeah.
there isn't a reporting
Yeah.
requirement, and it's more of a let's work cooperatively. And so
That's
all
where I
we
think
can
it
do
crossed the
is,
line.
I think we can send an email back to the select board. We haven't responded to Dr. Queenan's email and say, as evidenced by, if you've watched our meeting, we've, the DOE 25 and the
MS 25.
MS 25.
Attach that.
I think we could send it all to them.
Well, I think we can say we have addressed FY 22, FY 23 is in progress, it's still a current year, and we're still addressing needs. We are prepared, and we have gone through facilities, we've gone through the school board twice to present our capital planning needs. If you wish to work cooperatively on this, great, we wanna work with you. If you don't wish to work cooperatively on it, then let us know, and we won't present, and we'll have our own.
So, Dr. Jettie, the article that you shared with us last week, 2 weeks ago, you know, right at the meeting, because I brought it up from the School Boards Association, I don't think that had select board in it at all. I think it was either, you know, by an act of the legislative body, either the planning committee is responsible for the CIP.
That's what I was trying to say, yeah.
Or you can create a CIP committee. So there was no mention of select board at all in that article. And then I just copied some pieces from that too that were, like I thought, insightful. Although school districts are, for the most part, separate political entities which adopt their own budgets, a town or city CIP can also look at school-related projects. So they don't have to. So what's to prevent us from managing our own CIP and then
That's the way it
turning
used
it
to
over
be.
to them to incorporate into theirs if they want to?
There is nothing to stop it. I think again, to me, it goes back to what the spirit, and Andrew, I think, can speak to this better than anyone. What is the spirit of the Capital Improvement Committee? There's a reason why the school is on it. Doug's on that committee. We have a rep on that committee.
Yep.
The goal was to work cooperatively to create a capital improvement plan for the town so that there weren't overlapping needs put in the
Right.
same year that would create a burden on the taxpayer. It's too much in 1 year. That was the goal. So if that is still the intent and purpose, I think to the extent that the select board wants to know that FY 22 has been closed without a deficit, we can advise them of that, but I'm not sure. The implication in the email was we needed to go before them and present and answer questions, and that's where I get a little bit.
I think that's what threw me off too. I don't want another, I don't know.
I guess I'm just going back to what's in the best interest of our fellow townspeople.
Right.
Right?
And that's
Is
where
it two or is it one? In my mind, it's one. It's one, to your point, that's cooperative and collaborative and is encompassing so the town and school can properly plan, knowing both needs on both sides of the table.
Well, isn't that the capital improvements job? We give ours, they give theirs?
Well, I think at this point, again, we have not responded to the email,
Yeah.
so from their perspective, they don't know where we stand on
They're
it.
waiting.
So if we
they were
respond
waiting
back
for
and
this.
say,
Absolutely have to say
we do
everything's
not
been.
feel like we need to present, but we wish to work cooperatively,
answer your
we are ready
questions,
to
yep.
present, and we want to come up with a town.
I think the answer for fiscal year 22 in my mind is now closed.
Correct.
Right? I mean, the signatures seal the
That's
deal.
a big question.
Right?
Yep.
For fiscal year 23, to your point, it's an open year, right? But the reality is that will have to be funded by our general fund.
Right.
There's no other answer to it.
Right. We have every intention of ending this year in
You have to, we have to find it.
Right.
That's
At
your
zero.
answer.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like, there's no other sources of revenue to pay for that.
Correct.
It has to
Right.
be out of the general fund.
and that's it.
So to me,
And
that could be a
That's our
simple response
That's-
email from our chair between Tina to the committee, and then hopefully that's enough that we can present, because again, we're ready to go, the plan's ready.
I think
Let's
email
do it.
correspondence
board
could get
approved the
it done.
plan,
The
right?
board approved the plan, and,
Voted to approve the plan
yeah,
at
and
the last
facilities
meeting.
approved the plan.
Facilities approved it, but then it came to the full board, I thought, at the last meeting.
The full
so-
board, the one that we saw was the breakout,
I'm
the
not
land
sure
was
we
broken out.
approved it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we voted to approve
Yeah,
it, did
I'd
we?
have to go back and look.
I don't think we did.
Double-checking
I,
that.
'cause
I
I
know
don't
we
think we have
reviewed
in
it.
years
I don't know if we
past.
approved it.
Exactly. I don't think we voted to approve it.
To
But
my,
we haven't in the past.
my point, we don't need a separate, CIP committee, because we have a facilities committee that sort of served in that function.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
then the full board approves it.
Yeah, and that's actually what Monadnock has. They had
Yeah.
their facilities committee.
I
Actually,
guess
it
what
was
I
also
object to is a
facilities and finance
presentation, if we can send everything via email and answer their questions.
I think the other piece that we're losing sight of, it's not a commitment, it's a plan. this is what we intend to do. You know, we're not sitting there saying, and we have to identify where $35 million for a school is coming from. You know, we don't even know where we're gonna be with building aid yet. We don't know how that's gonna shake out. There's so many unknowns. We just we know we have a school that needs to be replaced, and every day gets more near to being replaced, so, this is our plan.
I don't know,
We're
I still
acknowledging.
feel like it could be too, because, I mean, and I get the point where, you know, it makes it easier to have everything all in one document, but honestly, like,
Once we approve it, it's
We-
public information.
yes, but we approve it, but what's to say, like, once it gets to this committee, this other committee that's not even, there's only one rep on the school, that they're gonna cut things that we think are important.
There's no cutting,
There are no cuts.
There's no cutting.
No,
no.
Okay.
There's no cutting.
just formatting it into.
And
a-
Yeah,
prioritizing
it's
it.
not a matter of like saying
But
no.
we
okay.
have written our priorities on it, so some of the other departments in town have not done that.
Okay.
They didn't really put a date or, you know, what year they would like it to happen or a priority on it. So the CIP was kind of guessing, based
Right.
on
Oh,
what they had
that's right,
presented.
and from my
Conservation, right?
recollection,
They
I
want
was.
$2 million. They don't care
Yeah.
how it's funded, but, you know, over the next 6 years, we want
Right.
$2 million, right?
So what's the added value that it's just literally in one document? Because when they're not changing the timeframes that we give them, and they're not changing the projects, it's
Well, they
just
can't-
putting it together.
They
Is that
can,
what you're saying?
well, they can change the time frame, right? They're not changing the project, but they can change, the intent is to level fund as close to possible, so there's not
Understood.
peaks and valleys
Yeah.
with our taxes.
Yeah.
Right, and so that's the whole premise of it. So
Right.
it's level funding, understanding all the needs. Now, it doesn't, to your point, it doesn't mean that it's actually gonna go to warrant,
Right.
right?
It's just a tool for the budget committee. I mean,
And the
that's,
planning,
that's
but,
what it
and the
is.
planning board. I mean, the
Yeah.
planning board needs this information.
It's a tool for impact fees.
Yeah, 'cause
Right,
we don't
yeah,
wanna
so-
do a new firehouse,
Yeah.
a new school, a new,
And we wanna make
Senior
sure that
center.
the impact fees that we're collecting are adequate to help fund these things due to, you know, new developments, so. So I do see value in it, and like I said, I mean, it's a good committee. We're working together as a team, and I think it's, like Andrew said, for the betterment of the town and for the whole community, really.
So let's go ahead and respond to the email and move
Yeah,
it forward.
do we wanna vote on that, or,
I don't think we need a vote,
No.
right?
okay?
I think that's just the direction.
Consensus, we'll
That's the
send an
chair.
email?
we're gonna share everything via email?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll
And answer
respond via
questions.
email, yeah.
Would everyone like to be CC'd
I
in
think
those?
on that email, you should send a signed copy or PDF of those documents, though. So I don't know if we can scan them in and send them over to the chair.
The signed cover sheets?
Yeah, the
Yep.
signed MS forms.
Yeah, we can get those.
Yeah,
to
to
you.
show that it's closed out, yeah.
Yep.
I need to, re-sign one of those, oh, sorry. In no disrespect to anyone who volunteers for this town, I don't know.
So
Sorry, I
we
shouldn't say
took a look back at the minutes while we were discussing that point, and we did not take a vote. So there is not a vote approving the CIP. So it is still, it's been reviewed by facilities. I think it's safe to say facilities was comfortable passing it up to the board. And then this bigger question sort of took over. So I don't know if the board wants us to put it on the next agenda to approve the CIP,
That
or
would be,
Yes,
Sure.
please.
Yeah, let's
Okay,
close the
so
loop.
we'll add it back in. So you'll have it on November 2nd, and
Okay. I think the meeting
When's the next
after
CIP meeting, yeah?
I was gonna say, I think it's November something. So the 25th, October 25th, but we won't have an approved, CIP by then.
CIP, October 20, no, Tuesday, the 25th.
Yeah, and then I have it in my notes. Oh, I know where it is. Nope, that's not it.
Then November 7th, Monday.
Okay, so we have a meeting November 2nd, so that would work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
it's the same one you saw last time.
Yeah,
We
nothing
made any
has changed.
adjustments to it, but
Yeah, yeah.
we'll relink it and make sure you have it.
Is the chair gonna reach out,
I
Yes.
can draft it.
Yeah,
or-
that's, yeah.
or are you?
can
The
do it.
chair will,
Yeah,
Chair
we
will,
can do
okay.
it together, that's
Okay.
fine. Before we start new business, it's close to 8 o'clock.
Just before we leave committee reports, Tara, Doug and I spent an hour together answering questions on the budget committee question tracker. So if you would just review those, and if something doesn't make sense to you, let us know.
Okay.
But
I
we
haven't
believe
seen
we've
that.
answered
All
all
right.
the questions to date.
Oh, fantastic.
Thank you.
Is that tracker shared with the committee?
It is.
Yes.
Yep, weeks
I
ago.
gotta pull up that. I
Yeah,
gotta
you
pull up
just
that
gotta-
again.
it's the same link, it doesn't change, it's all shared,
Okay.
yeah.
I only read up to 17 last.
I'm gonna find it.
We ready?
Sorry, forward, if you
that's
forward me
okay.
that link again if you find it. Thank you very much.
Before we start new business, I'd like to have public comment, since we have public here.
Thank you.
Can you please introduce yourself, ma'am?
So formal.
Shanna Dodge, 10 Heron Drive. Hi, everyone. Heron, Heron. So, I'm really tired, guys. It's like almost past my bedtime.
I know.
But I was watching from home and saw the recap of the discussion of the fundraising funds from the class of 2024 DC trip. And I felt compelled to come down to make sure that everything is just once and for all said. My husband, this was his battle. He was working on email, and I don't mean battle in a traditional sense. It's just the first word that came to my mind. This was his passion project, let's say. So he was writing emails, and so of course we talk. And so when I was watching tonight, and we were both watching, I said, I gotta go down there and just make sure. I always felt the whole time that he was emailing anybody involved that it's text communication, and it was really difficult to get to the nuances of this problem. So it was very frustrating to me that it was being dealt with over email. It was really it was the right way to do it, I guess. It wasn't getting us to the bottom of it. And after hearing Dr. J's recap tonight, which I appreciate, this is the first time that everything has been fully laid out and verbally. All the other times, emails were just summarized, and again, it just caused more confusion. So I really appreciate the recap tonight. However, I still feel like I have some things to say. So I know I probably have 3 minutes. I'm going to try to go through my notes. So I want everyone to understand that a very, very, very big deal was made when the kids were fundraising, that this was individual fundraising. It was a really big deal. It wasn't just said like, oh yeah, and you can kind of do this if you want. It was like, we want to make sure you understand you're raising this money for yourself. And we happen to have twins. We took this very seriously, and we raised some money. But I know some individuals who raised more money than we raised for both of our kids combined, actually. So it's not even about that. But people raised money individually. Now, after hearing the recap, I understand this now, that I see an issue. We raised individually. Then everybody who was going to go on this trip was asked to pay a deposit. So regardless of fundraising, people paid a deposit. Then, when the trip was canceled, through nobody's fault, it was a non-refundable deposit. I really think this was done with good intent, the next thing I'm about to say, but I don't know that it was correctly done or the right way to do it. The fundraising, because there was no money to give back to parents, but I think Tom wanted to be a good guy, and at the beginning of a pandemic when everything was very, still in flux and upsetting, and people were even losing jobs. Like, I fully understand probably where his mind was at. He wanted to do a nice thing for the parents to give their money back. There was no money to give back because it was non-refundable. So we didn't get money back that we paid. So he then used the fundraising money, it sounds, which was raised individually, but to pay everyone back. So therein lies the first problem. This was never told to us, by the way. That we were told, I guess we just were told that we were getting our money back for our deposit, but not how that money materialized. And again, we had other things to worry about. Yeah. We weren't really concerned, though, where's this money coming from? We just said, okay, great, we're getting our money back. Right. We were also told, you're getting your money back, and your fundraising money is in an account. And it could be used for something else. So for a year, my husband, in good faith, wrote to the BA at the time, to Dr. Jetty, to the board, saying, how can we use this money? Can my kids use this money for art classes? Can they use it for sports things? Can they use it for this? And it was no, no, no. It was never, there is no money, Mr. Dodge, anymore. It was always, no, you can't use the money for that. So again, it's the miscommunication. I understand after tonight's recap that the money's gone. I get it. And I think at the time, if Mr. Lecklider had written to all the parents and said, regardless of the amount you fundraised, we'd like to use the fundraising money to make everyone whole, because it just so happens that we can cover it with that money. But some of you raised more money than you put in. Are you okay with that? And I'm telling you right now, in May 2020, a resounding yes would have been given by all the parents, I firmly believe. It would have been a measure of good faith to put it in front of us and to tell us the truth. We used this money, it's gone. And I understand that there was this hope that the next class would go and maybe you could put that money in an account. But again, I do want to recall that my husband was writing for a year, and the emails he was getting were saying the money's in an account. It's just, you can't use it for that. And it turns out it was never in an account. So so I'm just, again, I see that it's gone. I do think that something that could be done, since there is no money, I see how it couldn't be used for something that's going to cost money, like even prom. If prom is off-site, that's a cost, so you can't recoup that. But things like parking spaces and things like that, if that's not costing you anything, it's a fee for the school. I was gonna say class dues as well, but I worry that then the class won't have that money. So I don't know, but anything that is not gonna cost money, if you can, let these kids have that, it would be
I
appreciated.
know I'm not supposed to comment, but instead of your boys paying $200 for a parking spot next year, they wouldn't pay it all and recoup some of their money.
Right.
Is what you're suggesting.
Yeah, anybody
That
who raised
wouldn't
money,
cost
anybody
them-
who raised
right.
money, that's,
And
yeah.
that would recoup a lot of, yeah.
See, that's the
Thank
kind
you.
of creative thinking.
And this is
I'm
what I've been
glad you
trying to
guys
say
done
for
that.
2 years,
Yeah.
but it was always
Someone
lost.
who also spent $200 a year for parking for a long time, I'm sure your boys pay for
Yeah, it's
themselves.
I mean,
Like, yeah.
originally I was hoping to pay for yearbooks and prom tickets, but the money's gone now. I get it. The money's not there. So yeah, I would appreciate just.
But I think that's a great idea.
And again, a lot of people raise money. It's not just us. There's a lot of people. And I know you've been hearing this year
Have a
from more
spreadsheet
parents.
of how much
So-
everybody.
Yeah.
I love that. Sorry.
So well, okay, but and so again, I appreciate anything that can happen. They are juniors now, but we have been trying since their freshman year to get this use. So we could have had my family could have had parking spots the whole time. Well, maybe half the time. I forgot it's double.
they
We
didn't
raised
drive as
$500 is what
freshmen.
I'm saying. So, we could have had $500 worth of parking. So it's neither here nor there now, but I wanted to point out that is one of the biggest points of miscommunication, was that money was not there. It was not in a fund.
I
It was
agree.
not waiting for us. It was hopefully going to be replenished, but that was not what we were told. And it sucks because it wasn't replenished. So, and again, I get the original intent was there. I know Tom's a nice guy and he really wanted to make people whole. And
Yeah.
we were all thrilled when we got our deposits back. We were like, okay. And we thought, oh, somehow we're getting our deposit back and we have the fundraising money. Awesome. And then it was like stonewall on using the fundraising. So now I get it, but I just wanted to point that
Thank you
out.
for coming down.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Oh, I thought Tara was going up there.
Policy tracking, new business. Did you all see the policy tracker added today? I thought that was pretty
I
interesting.
did not see that.
Nope.
I saw, this is a hyperlink?
It's all the policies we have with the ABB and BBA and when they were approved, past approval, approved, and we're working our way through.
This is something that I started doing a few years ago.
It's
And
fantastic.
I updated it over the last couple of days so that after Mrs. Hirschberger talked about the policy spreadsheet, and I said, well, we already have that, but I never had to bring it before the board before, so if the board wants to see it.
This is a great resource.
I'm gonna
Michelle.
go through and once we're done, I'm gonna go through and link all the policies so that it's from the website, so that if somebody clicks on it, it'll bring them right to the.
I think that's
I think it's
super helpful.
fantastic.
Thank you for all
Thank
that
you.
work.
So for the public, Mrs. Flynn, it linked all of our policies with all of its lovely letters.
Well, not yet, they're not linked yet,
Well,
they
not
will
linked,
be.
she wrote down the date, their past approval, and when they were approved again.
And then going forward, all you have to do is add another column. When they're reapproved or
Reapprove 'em.
whatever.
Perfect.
Great.
I see one going back to 1987.
There's a couple of them.
Wait a second, I was in high school.
We're working our way up to those.
Okay.
You're right, though,
We
there
had
are a
accents.
couple that are archaically old. And we are working our way up to
This
those.
is better than I thought it was gonna be.
Probably
Personally.
not. Nobody's wearing slouchy socks anymore.
So all of our policies should,
Those are my
that
big
we've
box.
gone over should, that, you know, should be between 2017 and 22. So the next cycle will reflect the same way. You'll start going through those every year, you'll start going through and reapproving, and it'll be just a constant cycle for you.
Why would some of these be on hold?
We're reviewing them. There has been changes in the law, and so we want to make sure that we get the right legal guidance on them.
So what's the difference between on hold and under review?
Review is under review with the board.
Okay.
On holding review. That was good.
I didn't have enough
Right.
space to write it.
All right.
I've gone through a good chunk recently. That's encouraging to see. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. We're ready to move on?
Yep.
First reading policies, JCA, change of school or assignment, best interest and manifest hardship. Which also includes JCA, NHSBA, JCA current policy. Does everyone have any questions?
Oh, but I have bitter
comments?
feelings about this.
Yeah. Did everyone get a chance to review them? Andrew?
Yeah.
Yeah, history with it.
Yeah.
Do I have a motion?
Basically,
All right,
what
I make a
happened was
motion to approve
the,
change,
NHSBA with-
JCA, change of class or school assignment
sorry.
policy. It's okay.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained.
I'm sorry, I was gonna explain that.
We're good.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the JEC was withdrawn by the NHSBA. You don't have to take action on that.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I saw that, yeah. Old business policy, second reading for approval, EG district.
Where'd you go?
Hold it.
Wait,
hold
what,
it.
there's more, there's
Still
more
on new
first reading
business.
policies.
Oh, I thought we did them all, sorry.
No,
They aren't all withdrawn.
I'm cool if you wanna do them all.
Oh, we can do them all one at a time, I'm
Works for
sorry.
me.
I'm new here.
One at a time. I have a
If there's
couple
a comment or question
questions.
on some, so.
Yeah,
Not
I
long
wrote a
ones.
few comments, I think Edline was one of them, and I put Power
Yeah.
School, that was probably before all the other ones.
I
I
put the
fixed it on
same
my
comment.
copy,
Yeah.
but not on yours, so when
Yeah.
it goes, when it's final approval, it'll be in the next.
It was something about going back to Edline, which I assumed
It's a
was.
good catch. I didn't
It
even
was
catch that.
before all the other things. JCE oh, that one was withdrawn. How about JCE, the other one, both?
No,
And
that's
a-
Isn't it JI?
AI
So
is the next one.
JI is the one we're on.
JI, formerly JF, Student Rights and Responsibilities, JINHSBSA, Disciplinary Code. This policy has been revised to reflect those changes.
Are there any questions on JI?
So my question on this is that all, the policy was completely shortened, right? A lot of the details of what the student rights and responsibilities are now redlined. And it says they're intended to be published annually in the applicable student handbook, but I go into all of the student handbooks and there is no section that says student rights and responsibilities. So do we need to update the handbooks first to get those in there and then review this?
I'm not sure what the answer to that is. I know that throughout the handbook, there's areas with behavioral expectations, conduct expectations,
Yeah.
program expectations, things like that. And I know that they were talking about, that was part of what they were talking about.
Yes,
So-
I did searches for the word responsibility. There are a number of responsibilities, but
Right.
very little rights, I would say. There are
It might be something that if the board wishes with the next handbooks coming out, that
So the only rights, just as an example, for Campbell, there are 4 rights, that are found. There are rights to records, rights related to discipline, rights related to bicycles and bus. And that's it. I feel like there are more rights that kids have.
But I would just,
Depends who their parents are.
if you look at what's crossed out, right, so take the first paragraph.
Yeah.
That's all legal, that's all discrimination law. I mean, we're not gonna,
Right.
you know, trample on somebody's rights relative to the pieces that are there, so, and if you look at the second paragraph, again, case law has made it really clear kids can have freedom of speech and they can assemble.
Yeah.
And so everything that's in there is all settled law. I'm not sure that stating it as policy is necessary because it's law. Unless there's something you see in there that you think is not covered by law.
I mean, it says, I don't know, I would have expected it to have a separate section, but I mean, I didn't have a chance to look at other towns, so, yeah, I don't know, so if the board is okay with it, that was just my initial, like, I don't know. Can we just wait, I mean, if you wanna approve it,
The board can do whatever
Then we
you
can-
wish with it. Yep.
I'll look at it again, I'll try to look at other towns, but I just don't have time to look at it.
Cool with waiting.
I agree, this is.
If there are questions, wait.
Okay, I'll do some more research and try to find, see if there are other
Thank you.
books that have
Yeah,
sections
can
that
we
say rights
table
and
this one, please?
responsibilities.
Did you get her other question, her other comment run by legal, the Supreme Court case about the cheerleader? That's on the side.
We did get that.
Okay.
I'll let Dr. Jetty speak.
I do agree vaping should be part of it, the tobacco.
Which one is this? I'm
So
sorry.
that's the next one.
So you went to
Okay.
JJ?
Sorry, no, I'm all over the
No, I'm
place.
trying to
I
keep
was
up.
all set
That's
with
all right.
that.
All right, so JI is being tabled, we're on to JJ.
Student co-curricular activities. I think we need to revisit this in light of things that have happened in surrounding towns.
Yep, so I had two comments that I wrote in here. One is, I gotta get to it, but,
It was tobacco vaping products, I think vaping's need, it just said use or possession of tobacco of any
in
form.
any form, and I think vaping has to be called out.
Agreed.
As a separate,
Tobacco / vaping products.
That's consistent with the policy we did a few months ago, too.
Correct.
Yeah.
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 Cause vaping is also
it's
tobacco
on
and it's also
page-
something
yep.
else too.
I know, I don't know.
depending.
Yeah.
Doesn't have
on
any
the page
tobacco.
numbers.
Yeah.
The third page.
Halfway down.
I have all them open, them, too
Yeah,
many JJs.
and then my other comment was,
Cheerleader.
yeah, the following behaviors constitute violations of these expectations, and this is one of the bullets. Any behaviors including but not limited to those listed above that the administration deems to be gross misconduct and reflects poorly on the Litchfield School District that occur in the community or elsewhere that comes to the attention of the administration at any time during the calendar year. And my question, I just remember there was my suggestion is to run this by legal because on June of 2021, there was a Supreme Court case that ruled for a Pennsylvania public school cheerleader who made a vulgar social media post off school grounds and subsequently was suspended, but it was found that the school violated her First Amendment.
I think
right.
that's a
So,
slippery slope.
I don't know, so. That's
But I
just,
think this
But
is
this
something
is
that
about
abs-
co-curricular activities, correct?
Correct. Like if this
So
happens.
to
at-
me,
this
it
is
means
but what this is saying is that if you do something off school grounds that the school considers gross misconduct, which in Pennsylvania, they considered this person's social media post that was vulgar a gross misconduct, and they
Suspension.
suspended her.
But I think suspension from school is different from
Then
suspension.
co-curricular,
okay.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
agree.
Okay.
because the co-curricular is a privilege, not
Yeah.
a right.
I agree.
I mean, it
Okay.
states it right at the beginning of the policy, right? That's kind of how I see it.
We wanna revisit this?
So,
No?
I'm quickly getting myself back up to speed on it. So what the Supreme Court said, I'm gonna read this,
Yeah.
the justices ruled that the First Amendment allows schools to regulate at least some student speech that occurs off campus. So they didn't really say that you can't hold a person accountable, but by a vote of 8-1, they agreed with the cheerleader that a 1-year suspension from the cheerleading team was a violation of the First
was the
Amendment.
co-curricular.
So it's
It
not,
was.
it's not so much, the ruling wasn't, you can't regulate the speech somewhere else, you can't regulate it in that manner. So she got reinstated on the team. So I think what we would have to do going forward, because now let's take that analysis for a second and then go back to what we're looking at. This says, any behaviors including but not limited to those listed above that the administration deems to be gross misconduct and reflects poorly on the district that occur in the community or elsewhere that comes to the attention of the administration at any time during the calendar year is subject to an appropriate discipline.
Right.
We can regulate that according to the support ruling. You can't take away a kid's rights for a year, you know, is more or less what they said. The punishment was too harsh. So in my opinion, we can run it by legal if you wish.
Okay.
But I think consistent with that ruling, we can say, we're not gonna tolerate it, it's inappropriate, and we're gonna take action, but then we just have to be careful
To match the
not to go too far.
response to the
Not to go too
But
far.
that's all in that matrix that we have in the handbook,
It should be,
right?
yep.
Okay, all right, I just want, that came to mind as I was reading it, so, all right.
Excellent.
I'll make a motion to approve for first reading policy JJ, student co-curricular activities.
I second.
With the vaping
As amended.
addition.
As amended, yes, with
I
the
second,
vaping.
as amended.
You got the
All
vaping.
those in favor of JJ student co-curricular activities
For first reading.
for
Aye.
first reading?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. JJJ, access to public school programs by non-public, charter school, and home education students. JJJ NHSBA.
This is all new or no?
This is all new.
Interesting. I thought we had a policy that said all
Yeah.
this already.
We have one, we do. It's included in another policy, but this one was totally, there's different things in here that are spelled out, with specific guidance.
But this language is required by law, so
It is
this is.
required by law.
It's not like there's a lot of option and
There
wiggle
are
room
no
in it.
options.
Right, so if somebody's not enrolled in our school system, but they live in Litchfield, we need to give them equal access to our classes and co-curriculars. My question is there any compensation? I mean, I know we get compensated on a per pupil basis, but we're,
They're tax dollars. They pay for the schools and they're choosing not to use them we have kids come in had kids come in for music only. They were homeschooled. Their parents pay taxes. I think that's the compensation
Okay,
personally.
got
Are they considered an enrolled student
They're
for
not.
purposes
No, they're not.
of?
So they,
Yeah.
so they
get no
wouldn't,
reimbursement, but taxes.
they wouldn't be picked up on like the adequacy calculations, if that's the question, but
Yeah.
to Liz's point, they're
Yeah.
still taxpayers in town,
Yeah.
so
Correct.
that portion is there.
Yeah.
And honestly, schools have a long history of doing all this anyway.
I was gonna
Right.
say,
It's
don't we
not-
do this anyway?
Yeah.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve policy JJJ for a first reading.
All right, I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. Old business, policies for the second reading and approval, e.g. district communication plan, policy plan. Does anyone have any comments, questions, concerns, second reading?
No, I'll make a motion to approve the district communications policy plan for second reading.
Second.
All those in favor of approving e.g. district communication policy plan, say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained, 500. COVID, the gift that keeps on giving.
So if you take a look at GMS, you can see that GMS had one high day, which was on the 12th. And otherwise, we're hovering in medium. When we last talked about this, what we have going on is a lot of respiratory virus. And if you read the article or saw the article that was in WMUR, hospitals are actually seeing a lot of juvenile cases of a respiratory virus, not COVID-related, but presenting as COVID-like symptoms because it's respiratory. And so that's what's kind of going around right now. And what Dan, because I said, can you explain this? And he said, it's that. He said, there's this cough and chest phlegm that is impacting at the elementary level.
Jake is our example.
And Jake.
It's making
So,
the rounds.
so you see that at GMS. You know, our goal is to get under the 5%, and so we came close, but we're not there yet, so. But if you look at the COVID positive numbers, you know, we hit 0, then we hit 1 as of today, right? And then, our student numbers did go up to 7, but are back down to 3. So we're gonna see the roller coaster as we work our way
Flu
through.
season, it's allergy season, it's cold season. Yeah, I agree.
Next, LMS, so you can see LMS is in the low to medium range. They have not hit the 10% threshold, which would be the high number. They have, actually, their staff cases have gone up, so that's a little bit of a trend that I'm seeing when I look at it. Student numbers are staying relatively even. It's like somebody comes off and somebody else comes on.
But these attendance numbers are high, right? I mean, this is, if you had seen 7, 9, and 8.2% before COVID,
Correct.
you would have been like, something's up.
Something's up.
Okay.
We, you know, we want our schools to be 3 to 4, and they're not. So these are higher than the.
But again, there's all this stuff going around,
Right.
so.
Are we offering a flu clinic for our staff? Flu and
So
a
the
vaccine?
the flu clinic was going to be on Monday. It was all set. Staff were signed up.
Yep.
There's a line outside the nurse's office at the high school, and the pharmacist didn't show up. So
Oh, no.
Holly called,
Probably had the
and basically, they said that they were short staffing and didn't send anybody. It's like, could you have called? So now they have
That
said,
stinks.
next Monday,
Okay.
no need to re-sign up, same
Are
list.
they gonna do boosters too and shingles or whatever? They, yeah, oh, good.
Yep.
Great.
It's all available at that clinic?
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah. Good.
And then if you look at the high school, so I didn't fill in the numbers yet, but they actually, again, have the better numbers, right? So staff has declined from 4 down to 1. Students have gone from 13 and 14 down to 1. And their attendance rates are actually, if you look at,
Where they should be.
yeah, if you look at yesterday and today, that's where they ought to be. So this is trending in the right direction.
Did they have a high recently?
They did.
They had a
Yeah,
high
'cause
last
my son
month.
was part of that
Yep.
high. Yeah,
So that's your COVID update.
thank you.
And this is on the website for families to be able to access.
This is on the website, yep.
Capital Improvement Committee.
We already discussed
Yep.
that.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that-
I didn't see it all the way down
Well, we
here.
put it on the agenda.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter.
okay.
Wanna rehash it?
Same
I'm
airtime.
gonna draft a note.
We're good?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm just
all right.
going through the letters. And did we decide school board before the manifest?
Yep.
Yes.
Which one?
School board comments.
I don't.
What date? Yes?
So I have a few.
Okay.
There was a comment, I tried to add it to the agenda, and it looks like I think you just resolved it, and now it dropped, that's right. We had agreed to send a response to Mr. Barker and Mr. Morrison. I don't know if that was done or not.
I sent them both today.
Okay,
Yep.
great, thank you very much. And then there was an update.
Do you want the answer? Do you want, did I explain it to you?
You did.
Okay.
You explained it to the board, and it was just a confirmation that, yeah, that we closed the loop, that's done.
And I explained it to them.
Cool.
Yep.
Solar costs, I know there was a table that you're gonna prepare at some point, and we'll take a look at that.
So we had a draft PPA with all the costs laid out. I reviewed it and sent it back to Kay for some editing. I'm waiting to get it back, and then it's gonna go to legal, but
Okay.
it's a meatier document, because it's all legal agreement on the way it's gonna play out, so.
Because of the increased cost, does the board need to relook at that and approve it, or how does that work?
So the costs, so we had projected like 89,000 as the annual expense, and I think it's at 95. So it's up a little bit, but it's not substantially higher. And actually, when it comes to taking, you'll see when you get the budget that we've taken the oil money, the electricity money, which totals far greater than that, and we've scooped it in there to say, here's how that will be offset. So, so we think it's relatively clean, but it's still within the money that we had in the budget, and that doesn't even include what we would have increased next year's budget to, given the increased cost of oil and
You level
electricity.
funded oil and electricity for next year?
We zeroed out oil and electricity, because
Right,
you don't
but-
need it.
But it was the same amount as this year's budget?
It was like 110, and this is only 95, so it's actually a cost savings going forward.
Okay.
But it wouldn't have been 110 next year, it would have been like 150 to cover the
Right.
increased costs. But we don't get credit for that, we can only recover what's there. And so, And so I guess my point is to go from 89 to 95, and that's all tied, if I understand it correctly, to the higher interest rates now. So when we were modeling all this a year ago, we were also not projecting interest rates have done what they've done.
Right, but I guess given the change in costs and, you know, costs to the taxpayer, right, is that something that the board now needs to reapprove?
When the PPA is final, we're gonna bring it forward for approval.
Okay.
And so I'm just giving you a snapshot of some basic numbers. There's a couple of other details in the, and one of the questions on the budget sheet is, projecting forward. So again, we have to have that discussion going forward too.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions?
I have two more. Meeting end times, Ms. Ames, I'd like to thank you for your email, right? I thought it was on point, as always. But I'm not clear on the board direction, what's the next step with that?
So I sent the email more to start the conversation.
Okay.
I
We
think,
discussed it on Friday.
I
our meeting.
think, we're okay today, it's 8:25, I'm actually
I know,
impressed
we're
with us.
doing good.
So,
Andrew's not done his commenting.
I'm
right?
gonna
Now
know
let's
that's
see.
good, but
Ouch.
I think in general, our meetings have been running pretty long, and we need to figure out whether, some of the things I suggested in it, which will be part of, again, my email will be
And
part
your
of the minutes.
suggestions were well taken.
Yep.
The non-public.
So
part,
I
Yeah, I
think-
just,
Yeah.
yes, we mentioned it in correspondence, great, but now what?
No, I think,
That's,
I just sent it on, Monday or Tuesday, so I would say, let's
Well,
respond.
that's partially why I made the motion to have comments at the end, to get through, make sure we get through the priority business, and then,
We can comment on what's
and
happened
then we can
before.
comment based on how we're feeling at 8:30. Instead of at 5:30, so.
I think I would like to see if anybody else has any more comments, and then at the next meeting, I think we
so
can
is it an
discuss those
agenda item on
ideas.
our next meeting?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, that's great.
But I
That
think
to
we
me is
just
like a
need
next
to-
step,
yeah,
right? It's
that's-
just not, it's not
Yep.
lost.
Yeah, yeah.
And then can you link your email or put it in a document and link it?
Absolutely.
So
Separate
that's,
suggestions.
Yeah.
and then
absolutely.
Yep. Absolutely. And again, I'm not married
We
to
have
any of
access to
them.
it on
I
the
just
agenda.
was throwing ideas out there. So
It's been a concern, it's been brought up,
Yeah.
it's been a concern, I've been watching more and more meetings. We just have a lot to cover.
yeah, we do.
We're trying.
My last comment, are we good?
Yeah.
My last comment is actually in regard to an agenda item that was up front, and that was the reading of our non-public minutes from October 5th with the vote of 410 by Mr. Cutter opposing. Just wanted to take a minute and explain to those in public why I voted the way I did, because I think it's important to cover off. I voted not to approve the non-public minutes because there was discussion held in that non-public session by the board directed specifically at myself, where my character, my judgment, even my professional employment were questioned by all board members. And I asked that that be included in the non-public minutes, and it was decided not to include that. So I voted against approving those minutes. That's it.
It was my understanding, it took me a minute, and my understanding that discussion is not part of, I understand your thoughts, I get it, and it was my thoughts and what I thought, and I believe that discussion, it's basically points, this is what we covered, it's not direct conversation, or we would be here, we'd need Michelle here for hours and hours to.
If I could just
Yeah.
help the board for 1 second, I think we should not discuss this further.
Okay.
I think that was a non-public discussion. I think any disclosure from non-public is a violation. So I think further discussion about what did or did not occur in non-public is something the board ought to contemplate.
I find it very appropriate to mention. I have a right to explain why I voted no.
I'm just saying, I think you should contemplate before you go further. I'm just advising that. Part of my job is to advise the board.
all right, school board comment. I wanted to give a big thank you to the 6th grade team for Nature's Classroom. It was great to have it back. I had a very happy 6th grader who had a lot of fun and adventures, and so Thank you to all of them who went and gave up time with their families for these overnights and dealt with our children and had dance parties and all of the wonderful things that they did. And I think there was even a 5th grade teacher who went, and there was some really great chaperones who went, Mr. Weber, Mr. Burns, and Mr. Stafford. So again, thank you to everyone for putting together that experience for our kids. I think it's one more sign that we're feeling a little bit more normal this year, and I am loving it, and I'm excited for the LMS schools to have some dances this week and next week. So, anyway, so thank you to LMS and those teams.
I have a couple of quick things too. Congratulations to the newly inducted members of the Tri-M Honor Society. That was it was on video. It's on YouTube if anybody wants to watch it. 11 members were inducted, so that was great. And then just a fabulous moment. I don't even remember what town it was, Peterborough, where we had our football game on Friday. My husband and I were at a restaurant having dinner before the game, and all of a sudden, song starts breaking out in the room next to us, and we look over and there are soccer players, and they're in like a blue uniform, and they're singing at the top of their lungs, "Don't Stop Believing." And and then at the end we find out that it's the LMS boys soccer team, and we were just blown away. And
They love that song.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was just such a great moment, and I heard that they lost that day too. So for them, it was just like a great motivational thing. So I loved that. And then congrats to the LMS volleyball coached by Mr. Frazier on winning the Jamboree on Saturday.
Awesome.
Lots of good things happening in our schools.
I would like to comment on the soccer teams at the high school. Both, they're wearing pink for breast cancer awareness. Some of our students have affected it in their had immediate family. It was moving. It was dedicated to a player's mom, the last game, who lost her life very young to breast cancer. And the parents, we all, you want pink, we will buy pink. We will get whatever it needs. And it was wonderful. And I would also like to tell the public that I'm trying to do the best I can. I'm reading Robert's rules. I'm doing the best I can. And I appreciate the help from everybody on the board and the little get me back to where I'm supposed to be. There's lots of letters, and I appreciate all of the support I'm getting from community members as well.
You're doing really well.
Thank
It's
you.
a learning curve for sure. You're doing
Like
great.
all your help. Thank you. And Tina, do you have any comments?
I do not.
Oh, thank you. Manifest. We had a question about the
I
manifest. You
had
had a
one question.
Tina has a question.
Yeah.
I put a pink.
Yeah, I saw that, and I had the
Yeah.
same.
Oh, yeah.
So there's health and dental for former staff that's included in this manifest, and I think there's a question as to why. So in the file that you even linked to us,
Yeah.
you'll see that broken out in there.
It's like $20 here.
Some of them are
$25
60.
there. Oh yeah, some
Yeah.
of them were more.
Oh, so that is most likely, and I'll double check on that, that's probably the health holiday credit that we received, which would have gone back to last year. So again, when we receive a health holiday credit, we don't take in all of it because typically there's a 13.87% type of pay, so
So
or
that's the
10, so that's their part, well, not, their 13%
Yeah.
of the holiday.
Okay.
Yeah, type of thing.
All right, that makes sense.
And I know Andrew,
And one other general rule, remember, former staff can Cobra, so you may see somebody on there who's not employed but is under a Cobra.
Cobra.
Right,
Yes.
so that's just one thing, that's not gonna explain $20, but it's,
Yep.
yeah.
There's a couple things. First, before we get to that, thank you for doing the summary. I think that's helpful.
Huge.
Yeah.
That's
help.
helpful for one of these. Can we get this like this for this one?
Which one are you pointing at?
This is a big one of all sorts of supplies and textbook replacements, and I see all sorts of stuff in here.
That was in there, I thought.
I only saw the one for the 7 pages.
Let me check on that summary for,
Is that the BMO?
Yeah, it's BMO.
That is attached to the first part of the summary. It's all one big PDF.
Why don't I see it?
I think it's after the first, what is it, 7 pages, you said?
It's 7 pages long,
And
yeah.
then the BMO starts, and it should say it up the top, BMO, I think.
I'm sorry, I don't see that. If I'm missing it, then so be it, but. Anyway, it sounds like it's possible and we can get it added. If it's not added, not a problem.
Yeah, I will look into that, make sure. It's good that the summaries have been helpful, and we'll look into,
Yeah, I definitely looked at it and
which page are you on, of the?
no, you're not in the scanned document, you're in a hard copy.
I have a hard copy, but I did scan it in and, combine the 2 files, did it not?
I don't see that one.
It didn't, okay,
There's just 7 pages.
my fault.
Yeah, okay.
I will recombine.
That's all right, that's all right.
Is the manifest being sent through email? It's not on the agenda, right?
It is. It's on the agenda.
Like, I can't find it now.
It's just a
Okay,
summary
I know,
sheet.
I looked at it oh, there it is. Okay, got it, sorry. Saw it before, but I couldn't remember.
So while I'm still on this one, I see like purchases for, obviously I would expect to see a lot of ink purchases and that type of thing. I get that, right? And usually they're in the $250, $300. I see one here for $2,500.
So we have a specialized printer somewhere, right? Like a larger.
Custom ink, $2244.94.
Can you see the location for that? No?
You'll know it off the top of your head, I'm
Not
sure.
the 3D printer, is it?
So after
in
the first 2
library?
numbers is.
It's 3-1.
So that's the high school. So there is a custom, like, printer, I think, which can print out larger documents. So possibly that could be towards that one. I would hope that's
It
towards
just stands out as,
Yeah.
a significant difference between what I typically see.
What's the cost for it?
$2244.94.
2244.94. And then it says for ink?
It says custom ink. Custom ink.
All right, so I'll look into that. Hopefully it is that custom printer.
I also see, additional Chromebooks, air purification systems, and going through the invoices, I see like portable basketball hoops being purchased. I don't understand why.
So the portable basketball hoop, again, is to get more kids involved. That one was purchased to get more kids involved at the elementary school, kids who might have a harder time shooting on a larger basketball hoop, to give them access to equipment at the elementary school. So that one you mentioned, what else did you mention?
So I appreciate that, but my question now is this the year to buy those, right? When we're in a big deficit that we're trying to solve for?
It depends, though, those went to, my understanding with the basketball hoop, went to a specific subset of students who, if you have 100 kids out there per grade level, being able to access most of the equipment, and not all kids can access most of the equipment. How can we get them accessing some equipment in order to make sure that their recess time is like everyone else, which is, kind of fun, carefree, and enjoyable. So,
And Doug, where did that come from? Was it the PE budget or?
the basketball hoop that I looked into kind of saw came, I'm assuming, from the special ed budget, because it was Sophia that asked me questions about it, and we checked with Primex to make sure it would be safe in a way as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I also see like an air purification system. I'm not saying that's not important, with all the HVAC work, but is this the year to do it?
And in many cases, those are driven by
IEPs.
504 IEPs. We have students who have air conditioning built into their IEP in 504, so we have to
And I
provide
think
those things.
this goes to the point of, there's been question about whether or not the district has been not meeting students' needs and cutting budget and not allowing purchases to go forward because of the deficit. They're happening. Those things are happening because
We need to educate
you're
our
meeting
kids.
student needs, right? Is that essentially?
Our goal is to keep meeting the students' needs and making sure that they progress, and get what each needs as well. So sometimes it's what one person needs, sometimes it's what a whole grade level needs, sometimes it's a subset type of thing. As well as we are still hiring, so we have assistants, custodians, other things like that. We would love to have people apply for those positions. We're looking for people who have experience, or people who are just excited to work, in a school and can be trained up. So, yeah, we're still looking to make sure that school functions as best as we can while also keeping track of the money.
Cool. That was a good plug. And there was one, I think several of us had, there was one payout for a large sum of money, and I'll just hand it to you so you can see
Yeah,
it.
I checked it.
Yeah, so there was a mistake where that person was paying double insurance. They were being charged for two different plans. So that was realized, and once it was realized, they went back and was figured out exactly how many times they were paying double, and they got that money back. Wow. So they paid extra for their insurance.
Wow.
Even though obviously they were only using one plan, not both the plans. So that was money owed back to that
How does
person.
that happen? I have no idea. We don't need to get into that.
So I
Well-
forget
There was a change in plan, but the old plan didn't get canceled and the new plan got activated, so then it was double billing. What's really interesting to me, I don't know about you, but I kind of look at my pay stub each week.
Yeah.
And this went on for over a year. And so there was a substantial amount of money that had to be reconciled. And so, I mean, mistakes happen, but ultimately I do think it's up to us as the employee to sort of monitor that. So we fixed it, it's all corrected, but.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
I think that covers it.
Anyone else? At this time, I would like to move into non-public session. The dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee, or the disciplining of such employee, or the investigation of any charges against him, unless the employee affected, number one, has a right to a meeting, and number two, requests that the meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted. The hiring of any person as a public employee, matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than the member of the body or agency itself, unless such person requests an open meeting. All those in favor?
Yes.
What to say?
Aye.
Yes? Aye. Aye. Aye.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.